all about. My little pony, friendship is magic.
I've been asked more than once if I would be reviewing episodes from Season 1. And after thinking about it, I've decided that instead of reviewing them like I do my other reviews, this is going to be a bit different. See, in my other reviews, they're more like first impressions, since I release them soon after the episode airs. And that's how I want those reviews to stay, as first impressions. With Season 1, however, I've had a lot more time to think about the episodes, and have watched them multiple times on separate occasions, so my first impressions are a bit lost. With this video, I'm going to go over every episode of Season 1 and give my thoughts on them. Some of these segments will be short and some will be a bit more in-depth. It depends on how much I have to say about the episode. At the end of each segment, I'll give the episode a rating out of 6 stars. 6 stars will be represented by 5 gold stars though, because I'm a fan of Rock Band and I've started playing it again. These are overall subjective ratings. Some episodes have better humor, morals, songs, and characterization than others, but I tried to consider everything in these ratings. So without further delay, here are my thoughts on all 26 episodes of Season 1. Grab a snack and a drink. This might take a while.
Until you all said it's magic with me.
Once upon a time, in the magical land of Equestria.
While the intro of the first episode had me extremely skeptical, I kept watching because I wanted to see what the fuss was about. I have a policy about watching new cartoons. I need to watch at least 3 to 5 episodes of one before I form an opinion on it. Luckily, Friendship is Magic caught my attention in the beginning when Twilight started talking. The words she used threw all of my preconceptions out the window. The first episode did a good job of introducing the main characters and the setting of the show, and it ended with a cliffhanger which just fed my curiosity even more. It still felt like a just for girls show to me, but the fact that they introduced a villain in the very first episode impressed me a lot. I didn't really feel any attachment to any of the characters except for Twilight at this point, so I was still skeptical about their personalities. Overall, I give this episode 3 stars.
All the ponies in this town are crazy! Do you know what time it is?
It's the eve of the summer sun celebration. Every pony has to stay up or they'll miss the princess raise the sun. You really should lighten up, Twilight. It's a party.
How can I stop Nightmare Moon without the elements of harmony? And just what are the elements of harmony? And how did you know about Nightmare Moon, huh? Are you a spy? Whoa!
Simmer down, Sally. She ain't no spy. But she sure knows what's going on. Don't you, Twilight?
In the second episode, there was a lot more revealed with the personalities of the main 6 characters, and I started to feel a bit more attached since Twilight became friends with them. It was with this episode that it felt like an adventure with them going through the Everfree Forest to battle Nightmare Moon. This episode also had the very first song in the show, which at first I was dreading. But over time I've grown to love it, and everything else that Pinkie Pie continues to sing in the series. I think this episode had a lot more going for it than the first one because of the action sequences and the introduction of the elements of harmony, revealing more about the personalities of the ponies. And at this point it was something that I wanted to continue watching. So for this episode, 4 stars.
The Grand Galloping Gala! Yeah!
Look! 2 tickets!
The characters start to develop a lot more in the Ticketmaster, and I honestly think it introduces them better than the first episode does. Each character has their own unique reason for wanting to go to the gala, and their own unique way of trying to convince Twilight to give them the tickets, which was really amusing. It was nice to see a normal episode after the 2-parter, and see what the ponies do in their everyday lives. It had decent humor, great animation, and provided us with our first moral, being about the ability to please your friends, which now that I think about it, was an excellent first moral for Twilight to learn. I give the Ticketmaster 4 stars.
Twilight is my bestest friend Whoopee. Whoopee,
Pinkie.
she's the cutest, smartest, all-around best pony. Pony.
Pinkie.
I bet if I throw a super duper fun party,
Pinkie.
she'll give her extra ticket to the gala to me. Pinkie! Yes, Twilight?
But still only one pony. And one pony plus hundreds of apple trees just doesn't add up to...
Don't you use your fancy mathematics to muddy the issue. I said I could handle...
This was the first episode that focused on a character other than Twilight and showed a flaw that Applejack has. She's presented as being one of the town's most reliable ponies, but later becomes too stubborn and reluctant to let her friends help her make Applebuck season easier on her. We started to see a lot more facial expressions from the ponies in this episode, as well as some excellent background music. While this episode wasn't quite as funny as I remember it, it still had a lot of moments and scenes that are very iconic for any fan of the show. Just for those iconic scenes and the character development alone, I give this episode 4 stars.
And I know it's gonna be so awesome! Exactly! And this week, I get to run Sugar Cube Corner for the first time!
What does that have to do with Applejack?
Rise and shine, Rainbow Dash! It's a brand new day and we got a lot of pranking to... Ooh.
What really surprised me about this episode is how a Griffon appears in it. I was really not expecting that when I started watching. Sure, there was the Manticore in the second episode, but I wasn't expecting them to put a mythical creature as a friend of one of the main characters. Another thing that surprised me was pointed out by a user by the name of Buck555, who stated that in this episode, Pinkie Pie is actually right about Gilda, but still considers Twilight's view on the matter. It's rare to see a character who is actually right consider that they're wrong. It's nice to see a situation like that presented in the cartoon because of just how rare it is, and it made me like Pinkie even more. Other than that, the interaction between Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie was really nice to see start in this episode. Overall, I give it 4 stars.
I'm sorry, every pony, for bringing Gilda here. I didn't know how rude she was. And Pinkie Pie, I'm really sorry she ruined that awesome party you put on for her.
Hey, if you want to hang out with party poopers, that's your business.
I'd rather hang out with you. No hard feelings?
No hard feelings.
There's nothing wrong with being talented, is there? Nothing at all. Except when someone goes around showing it off like a school filly with fancy new ribbons.
Just because one has the ability to perform lots of magic does not make one better than the rest of us. Especially when you got me around being better than the rest of us.
Magic's magic. Boo!
Boast Busters continued a bit of a trend with one-shot characters that we would see throughout the season. The first being Gilda and now Trixie with this episode. I'll go ahead and say that I like Trixie as a character a lot better than Gilda. I feel like Trixie was a lovable snob, while Gilda was just, well, mean. This is also the first episode that focused on developing Twilight's character a bit more. The Ticketmaster sort of did, but this one delved into her issue with presenting her talents to others. I connect with this episode a lot because the way Twilight acts is a bit how I feel a lot of the times when I try presenting my talents to other people. I feel like I'm afraid that I'll come off as, well, like Trixie. Besides personal reasons for liking this episode, it also introduced us to Snips and Snails, who are 2 characters that I wasn't too fond of when they first appeared, but they grew on me over time. There was also the Ursa coming to town, which was an unexpected action sequence so late in the episode and had some awesome animation with a very unique look. I give Boast Busters 5 stars.
Twilight?
Once again, the great and powerful Trixie has proven herself to be the most amazing unicorn in all of Equestria. Was there ever any doubt?
Goodness, are you okay? Are you coughing because there's a carrot stuck in your throat? Because you need some water? Because of that giant cloud of scary black smoke? I'll take that as a yes.
Dragonshy is the first episode I suggested in my long video explaining why MLP is so good, and there's good reason for that. This episode is one of the more adventurous ones, and one that really shows off the main 6 and their personalities to a T. The way they act in this episode is representative of how they act throughout the entire season. This episode also surprisingly answered the question I had at the very beginning of the episode when I asked myself why Fluttershy was afraid of dragons since she had talked to Spike in the first episode. It's little things like that which make this show that much more enjoyable. This is one of those episodes that I feel anyone can watch, regardless if they're a fan of the show or not, and still enjoy it. Which is why I'm giving it my first gold star rating.
Alright, that's it. We've tried persuasion, charm, whatever it is Pinkie Pie does. It's time to stop wasting time. I'm going in. Rainbow,
youngest pony ever gonna meet.
That's not even a word. This is gonna be the bestest slumber party ever! Yay!
Yay.
At first I was dreading watching this episode because of the premise, and I actually thought about skipping to the next one when I first started watching the show. But to my surprise, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought. While this is definitely one of the more girly episodes, it does delve into some character development with Applejack and Rarity. There are a couple of things I don't like about this episode, though. One of them being how the setting is in one place. Maybe that's why it felt girlier than the other episodes. The other thing I didn't like is how Twilight seems completely oblivious to how slumber parties work, and even disregards the tree that falls into her library. It just seemed, I hate to use the phrase, but out of character for her. Despite those two things, though, and how girly it felt, the episode is still enjoyable and has a nice lesson at the end. 3 stars.
Oh, I look awful. Better?
Thanks.
Pinkie, what are you doing here alone in the dark?
I'm not alone in the dark.
Okay then, what are you all doing here in the dark?
We're hiding from her.
I feel like Bridle Gossip did a really good job of introducing a new character into the show. And I'm not talking about Sakura. I'm talking about Applebloom. The only instance that Applebloom spoke until this point was during the first episode. She is established as a curious young mind among a group of paranoid elders. And I really liked that. Sakura was introduced in a nice way as well, but I feel like Applebloom really stole the show. There was also quite a lot of humor in this episode with the curses, as well as some really great animation and expressions. Especially from Pinkie Pie. Overall, I give it 4 stars.
Is there something wrong with you? Would you care to tell us? So, you're not gonna tell us? Yes, you're not, or yes, you will?
Good gravy, girl. What's wrong with you?
I don't want to talk about it.
Pinkie, do you want the other one? Ugh, a parasprite? Are you kidding? Ugh.
A pair of what?
How could you not like? Ugh, now I gotta go find a trombone.
A what?
This was M.A. Larson's first episode on the show, and you can definitely tell it's very characteristic of his writing style. I feel like this episode was really the first one that made it feel unlike a girls' show. It presented a problem that is very reminiscent of action-adventure shows from the 80s and 90s. And that really convinced me that this show was a lot more than just a show based on pastel-colored pony toys. It made it feel like a fantasy world. I love how all of the characters are involved with the parasprite infestation, and it was just really enjoyable to see them try solving it. The moral was pretty much non-existent in this episode, which set the stage for future M.A. Larson episodes that have very vague morals. I give Swarm of the Century 5 stars.
Pinkie, we're in the middle of a crisis here. This is no time for your nonsense.
Don't they just use magic to change the seasons like we do in Canterlot?
No, Spike. Ponyville was started by Earth ponies, so for hundreds of years they've never used magic to clean up winter. It's traditional.
It's ridiculous. No magic. Puh.
You probably already know what rating I'm going to give this, since I already mentioned that Dragonshy was part of my suggestions in my long video, and so was this one. But I just can't help it. Everything about this episode was excellent. I think the main thing I like about it, though, is how it's really the first episode where the entire town is involved, making it feel like a community. Not only that, but I like how the episode focuses on Twilight trying to find her place in that community. And of course, there's the song, which was the first really big, hard-hitting song we got from the show. It impressed me when I first heard it, and has remained an iconic theme within the fandom. I don't know how anyone could not like Winter Wrap-Up. Really, the only thing I found odd about this episode was that weird forced educational moment between Fluttershy and Spike asking about hibernation. I mean, seriously, what was that? Anyway, if you haven't guessed, this is a gold star episode.
The time has come to welcome spring and all things warm and green, but it's also time to say goodbye. It's winter, we must clean. How can I help? I'm new, you see. What does every pony do? How do I fit in without magic? I haven't got a clue. Winter wrap up, winter wrap up. Let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap up, winter wrap up. 'Cause tomorrow spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow spring is here.
Apple Bloom, are you passing a note? What could be so important that it couldn't wait until after class? It's blank.
Remind you of any pony.
This is the episode where we were introduced to the concept of a cutie mark and what it represents. I feel like the creators of the show really wanted to make something out of those marks, so introducing it as a mark of personality or talent was really great. This episode also delved a lot more into Applebloom's character, and introduced us to Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, both of which I loved instantly when they started standing up for Applebloom. I also really like Diamond Tiara as an antagonist for the CMC, as I've stated before in a review. It just seems great to have something that the CMC can work against other than getting their cutie marks. Oh, and Twist is worst pony. 4 stars.
All you have to do is take a cup of flour, add it to the mix. Now just take a little something sweet, not sour, a bit of salt, just a pinch. Baking these treats is such a cinch. Add a teaspoon of vanilla. Add a little more and you count to 4 and you never get your fill of cupcakes. So sweet and tasty cupcakes. Don't be too hasty cupcakes. Cupcakes, cupcakes, cupcakes.
You couldn't hit a barn door with that kind of a throw.
Yeah. I still have the closest throw, Apple Smack. Just try and beat it.
Yeehaw! It's a ringer. That's how we do it down here on the farm. I lost. Don't feel bad, Rainbow. It's all in good fun. I hate losing.
Fall Weather Friends has become one of my favorite episodes for an interesting reason. That reason is because the episode's main focus is about maintaining a friendship. Throughout the season, the ponies went through different life lessons. But this is the first episode where we encounter a problem that arises with 2 ponies that are already established friends. Applejack and Rainbow Dash are very similar, yet very different, and it was nice to see that contrast between their competitive natures. I also like how Twilight is the peacekeeper throughout this episode as well. Overall, it was a very enjoyable episode for me because of the character development between Rainbow Dash and Applejack. I give it 5 stars.
Twilight? What in tarnation are you doing up here?
I'm racing.
Good one, Twilight.
I'm not joking.
What? You're not an athlete. You're an egghead.
I am not an egghead. I am well read.
Egghead.
So, all you have to do is make a different, stunning, original, amazing outfit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus yourself 6 ponies and lickety-split?
Oh, Applejack. You make it sound as if it's going to be hard.
The main thing I love about Suited for Success is how Rarity is portrayed as a designer working with picky customers. It's something that I know a lot of people have had to deal with, whether it be artists, web designers, architects, or anything that can be commissioned. This is the first episode that made something that sounded really girly into something very interesting and entertaining. I mean, making dresses? And singing about making them? How much more feminine can you get? Everything about this episode was fantastic. The humor, the designs of the dresses, the animation during the second fashion show in front of Hoity Toity, and the song, which is my favorite out of Season 1. And that in turn makes this a gold star episode.
It needs to be about 20% cooler.
All we ever want is indecision. All we really like is what we know. Gotta balance style with adherence, making sure we make a good appearance.
Even if you simply have to fudge it,
Make sure that it stays within our budget.
got to overcome intimidation. Remember, it's all in the presentation. Piece by piece, snip by snip, croup, duck, haunch, shoulders, hip, bolt by bolt, primmed and pressed, yard by yard, always stressed, and that's the art of the dress.
Is your knee pinchy now?
No, But my shoulder's achy. That means there's an alligator in the tub.
How come your knee didn't get pinchy? That isn't just scary, it's downright dangerous.
No, it's not, silly. This is my pet alligator, Gummy. He's got no teeth.
Hey, okay, I get it.
I know a lot of you already know my negative opinion on this episode. So let me tell you why briefly. It seems that the moral was lost in translation. Instead of telling how to be open-minded, it does just the opposite, and it antagonizes skepticism. I've grown to like the Pinkie sense due to a recent episode. Bless you, M.A. Larson. But the way it's portrayed in this episode as an absolute truth rubbed me the wrong way. Not only that, but they turned Twilight into a bad scientist. A scientist doesn't try to prove his or her assertions. A scientist goes by what evidence is available, whether it fits with their assertions or not. Really, the only saving grace in this episode for me is the Hydra and the background music during that scene, as well as Rapidash Twilight. 2 stars.
Huh? But what? The Hydra wasn't the doozy? How could it not be the doozy? What could be doozier than that?
Dunno, but it just wasn't it.
I give up.
Yay.
Ugh, you're gonna cheer for me like that? Louder.
Yay.
Louder!
Yay.
Louder!
Yay.
Ugh.
Too loud.
Like Dragonshy, I think this episode can be shown to just about anyone and they can still enjoy it without being a fan of the show. This is also a prime example of how great the animation in the show can be, as well as the background music. There's also a lot of development going on with Rainbow Dash and how she actually shows a bit of weakness. The humor in this episode was decent, and the beginning scene is one of the most iconic in the entire show. There's not really anything bad I can say about this episode, except maybe the ending with Rarity explaining the moral. It just felt a little out of place. But besides that, I feel like this was M.A. Larson's first Gold Star episode.
Come on, it'll be fun.
I assure you they're quite a handful.
These sweet little angels.
Well... all right.
Cutie Pox Crusaders sleepover at Fluttershy's cottage! Yay! So cute.
Stairmaster is sort of a cross between a Fluttershy episode and a CMC episode, and that made it a bit of an odd beast. Fluttershy looking over the CMC was a nice change of pace after Sonic Rainboom, but there just wasn't that much that was interesting to me in this episode. We saw a bit more of Fluttershy's character developing when she protects the CMC from the cockatrice, and it was a bit grim to see Twilight turn to stone. I mean, she could have stayed that way. Really, there's not much I have to say about this episode other than it was pretty average, so I give it 3 stars.
That is not how you call a chicken.
Oh, and you know how to call a chicken.
I know that's not the way.
Then show me.
I don't have to show you.
You're just chicken.
And not...
Oh, wait. Now I know how to call a chicken. Skidaloo! Skidaloo! That's so funny I forgot to laugh.
I'll bay, Cutie Mark Crusaders. You've done one fine job with this place. So, what's next?
Well, now that we have a real-life clubhouse, and a map of Ponyville, and a Cutie Mark Crusaders theme song...
Theme song?
We're gonna go out in the world and discover our talents. A new adventure. And earn our cutie marks. We'll leave no stone unturned. No mountain unclimbed. No meal uncooked. No sock unworn.
Well, okay then. Sounds like you have a plan. I gotta, leave no apple unpicked. See y'all later.
This episode is really the first episode where we see it focus on the CMC as a group. The Stairmaster sort of did, but it didn't really delve that deep into their characters. We find out in this episode just what the talents of the 3 fillies are, but they are completely oblivious to them. I think that's why a lot of people don't like this episode because of how stupid the CMC act. But to me, it was enjoyable. And I really like the ending performance from them with the Cutie Mark Crusaders theme song. Seeing them dressed up in cheesy 80s costumes really made me smile. Overall, I give the Showstoppers 3 stars.
We are the Cutie Mark Crusaders, on a quest to find out who we are. And we will never stop the journey, not until we have our cutie marks.
Who is that? You know, it's terrible to keep a lady waiting. Coming! I think we're really going to strike gold this time, so to speak. Jackpot!
Oh, it's not the dragon we want, it's the pony.
This episode really showed how cunning Rarity can be, and really made me respect her even more after she already gained my respect and Suited for Success. This is also kind of a Spike episode, where it focuses on his crush, so it was nice to see him get a bit of spotlight. The Diamond Dogs were really interesting antagonists, and gave the excuse for the main 6 to go on an adventure. The humor in this episode was really excellent. The way Rarity acted towards the Diamond Dogs was priceless. It has another one of the most iconic scenes. It was nice to see how the main 6 were concerned about Rarity, yet Rarity was able to take care of herself. And that's something that I think her character really needed to have, for her to be loved by the audience. This episode is deserving of 5 stars.
He called me ugly.
No, mule! I said mule!
An old, ugly mule, and it's true. Just look at me. I used to be beautiful, but now.
No, you're still beautiful, Miss Rarity.
You're just saying that.
No, you're still pretty and oh, nice, yeah.
I don't believe you. You never liked me.
Too much blush. Not enough. Too much. Not enough. Perfect. Oh, yes. Even her sneezes are graceful. Now go. How do you feel? Excited, overjoyed, thrilled beyond your wildest dreams?
Nervous.
Nervous? Don't be ridiculous. You're only facing a large crowd of ponies who will be watching your every move and silently judging you.
I love this episode, for multiple reasons. One of the main reasons is because of how girly the episode sounds, yet it remains to be very entertaining, just like Suited for Success. The dialogue exchange between the characters in this episode is just excellent. It has a lot of very humorous moments with Fluttershy, Rarity, Pinkie, and Photo Finish, who is my favorite one-shot character from Season 1. And the episode even has one of the best morals, about sharing your true feelings with your close friends. I love seeing the interaction with Rarity and Fluttershy, as well as Pinkie and Twilight throughout the episode. Over time, this has become my favorite episode of Season 1, and it still is, because I still giggle every time I watch it. I give Green Isn't Your Color a gold star rating.
She's a natural in front of the camera.
Photo finish?
I only need to point and shoot, and I capture the magics.
Oh my God! Photo finish, I'm so sorry to interrupt. It's just that I'm running late.
How could I have forgotten? Your appearance at the ballet opening. Every pony who is any pony will be there.
Oh, actually, I'm supposed to be meeting my friend.
Vigor!
Fluttershy's not a tree, silly.
What's going on?
Rainbow Dash thinks Fluttershy's a tree. I do not think she's a tree. I was
Did you say she was a tree?
No. Well, yes, but not exactly.
You know she's not a tree, right?
She's not a tree, Dashy. I'd like to be a tree.
This is a very odd episode because it introduces a new setting, and a conflict between buffaloes and ponies that parallels the Old West. While I'm not that critical of that aspect of the episode, there is something else about the episode that I dislike, and that's how Pinkie acts. One thing that I disliked a lot about Dave Polsky's writing is how he characterized Pinkie as being a complete idiot. Besides that, I've heard a lot of people don't really like the song in this episode, but to me, I think it's one of the more underrated Pinkie Pie songs. Overall, I give Over a Barrel 3 stars.
Appaloosa! Boggles the mind we settler ponies built all this in just the past year, don't it? And as you can see, we have all of the finest comforts, like horse-drawn carriages.
Okay, you pull now.
Ah, we just switched. And those there are horse-drawn carriages.
Philomena, my pet, you're awake. Do say hello to our gracious hosts.
Oh, my.
She is quite a sight, isn't she?
I've never seen anything like it.
I don't know what it is about this episode that I find bland, but it just is to me. I don't dislike it, but I don't really like it either. I just think it's okay. It has a couple of my favorite characters as the focus, with Fluttershy and Twilight taking care of Philomena, but maybe it's just the way it progresses that leaves me unimpressed. There are a lot of great expressions in this episode, as well as some pretty good humor with Celestia in the beginning, and Philomena throughout. If anything, I'd just say this is a really average episode. 3 stars.
So, aren't you gonna banish me? Or throw me in a dungeon? Or banish me, then throw me in a dungeon in the place that you banished me to?
Of course not, my little pony. Where on earth would you get such an idea?
I guess I have some imagination.
I never felt joy like that before. It felt so good I just wanted to keep smiling forever. And I wanted everyone I knew to smile too. But rainbows don't come along that often. I wondered, how else could I create some smiles?
After seeing Call of the Cutie, I really wanted to know how the main 6 got their cutie marks. So reading the premise for this episode before watching really had me pumped. Admittedly, the way all of the ponies were connected beforehand with the Sonic Rainboom did seem a bit cheesy, but the way each of the backstories were shown had me intrigued the entire time, and I loved seeing the main 6 as fillies. They were all incredibly cute. I was actually really impressed by the voice actresses making them sound younger as well. Overall, I loved seeing the backstories, and it actually made the episode feel longer than it actually was, which in my eyes is always a good thing when it comes to Pony. I give Cutie Mark Chronicles 5 stars.
My cutie mark! Yes, 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 yes. Okay. We're happy for you, Twilight. Yeah, thrilled. Let's get out of here while we still can.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Hi there. I'm Spike. I'm sure Twilight has told you all about me. Spike, you know, sister number 1. I'm Spike. And who are you? And what are you? Who? I thought your name was Aloysius. Okay, who, Aloysius, whatever. I'm Spike, okay? Look, all you need to know is that I'm number 1 and you're number 2. Got it?
I don't know what it is about All's Well That Ends Well that makes so many people dislike it, but I think it's because of how forced the story feels. We didn't really know that much about the relationship between Twilight and Spike beforehand, so it was nice to see more of it in this episode. Other than that aspect of this episode, I just didn't really care for it that much, just like other people. The humor was a little bland other than one booze joke we got in the beginning, and the introduction of Aloysius and Spike running away just felt, well, forced. While I don't dislike it quite as much as other people do, I still think it falls flat as being a pretty mediocre episode compared to the others. Especially when compared to the other episodes Cindy Morrow has written. This is definitely her weakest. 2 stars.
And Aloysius, I know now that you weren't out to take my job. Forgive me? Me. Forgive me, Spike. I don't think I can make it, because, I have to, you know what? Pick apples. Yep, apples. Because that's what we do with the apples. We, pick them.
Okie dokie loki. A party is still a party, even if there are only 3 guests.
Party of 1 had the very first scene I ever saw from the show when I started looking at clips, which pretty much convinced me that I had to watch this show and find out about the characters. I was watching the episodes in order, So when I finally got to Party of One, I was excited because Pinkie Pie had become one of my favorites. I was not disappointed with this episode. Everything about it is great. The humor is excellent, the expressions the ponies have, the breakdown Pinkie Pie goes through, just everything. While it may seem over the top for some, I feel like we need these kinds of episodes to appear every so often, to remind us of just how hilarious a cartoon can be when the boundaries are pushed. I give Party of One a gold star rating.
I'm just glad none of them ponies showed up.
Oh, they're not so bad.
Not so bad? Police! They're a bunch of losers!
Oh, come on now. Losers might be a little strong, don't you think?
After the way they treated you, I say losers isn't strong enough.
Well, it was pretty rude. Pretty rude? It was downright despicable! It was, wasn't it?
If I were you, I wouldn't speak to them ever again.
You know what? I'm not gonna speak to them ever again. And I'm not gonna invite them to another party as long as I live. They don't deserve to be invited to my parties. Not after the way they've been acting. Despicable!
Losers!
Yes.
Gala, we must go, we're ready now, we're all aglow. Into the gala, let's go in and have the best night ever. Into the gala, now's the time, we're ready and we look divine.
Into the gala, meet new friends.
Into the gala,
Sell some apples.
into the gala, find my prince.
Prove I'm great as a Wonderbolt.
To
Disney to sell.
to find,
to prove. To woo to talk.
Into the gala, and we'll have the best night ever. At the gala.
Yeah! This is gonna be the best night ever. You know why? Because we're all gonna spend time at the gala together. Or not.
It was really interesting to see how they would conclude the gala storyline throughout this season. There was mention of it in the Ticketmaster and Suited for Success, but before I knew about the staff of the show, I was not expecting them to actually go through with the finale that connected those two episodes. Keep in mind, I watched all 26 episodes of Season 1 within a couple of days back in August of last year. At first, the song of this episode didn't really impress me that much, and I was honestly dreading it. But after watching it multiple times, it's definitely grown on me, and it's one of the best songs Daniel Ingram has put out. There was also quite a lot of animation throughout the song and the entire episode that really impressed. I like how in this episode, the ponies learn that they all wanted to go to the gala for their own reasons. But during the episode, they find out that it's not what they had hoped. And in the end, they learn that it would have been better if they stuck with each other, hanging out with the close friends that they've gotten to know over the course of the season. Overall, a really great finale, and deserving of a gold star rating.
You stomp your whole self in, you stomp your whole self out, you stomp your whole self in, and you stomp yourself about. You do the pony pokey and you give a little shout. Come out! That's what I'm talking about. You do the pony pokey, you do the pony pokey, you do the pony pokey, and that's what it's all about. Yeah!
So there are my thoughts on all 26 episodes of Season 1. The first season did a great job of introducing us to the characters of the show, telling us who they are, and building the world that they live in. Season 1 is the reason many of us became fans in the first place. So it will always hold a special place in our hearts, no matter if future seasons seem better or worse. It's the sheer surprise that we got from seeing such an excellent cartoon that kept us watching. And I feel like we may be a bit too critical of future seasons because of how surprised we were with Season 1. Just remember that Season 1 had its flaws, as well as its strengths. Some episodes were written better than others, and some were more humorous than others. Though, that's just all my opinion. Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Since I'm obsessed with this show right now and Season 2 is coming along very soon, I thought I'd make a video showcasing my top 10 favorite moments of Season 1. There aren't really any requirements the moments had to make to be in this list. They could be short or long, or separated into different parts during an episode. On a few I'll just show the moment, and on others I'll add commentary, and probably won't show the whole clip, since a few of them are quite long. Oh, and by the way, there are a few spoilers in this list, so if you are interested in the show and still haven't seen it, you might want to avoid bits. If you already know or don't care, then go ahead and keep watching. Anyway, these are the moments I most enjoyed while watching the show. Starting with... Number 10. Twilight evolving into Rapidash.
How could it not be the doozy? What could be doozier than that? Dunno, but it just wasn't it. I give up.
Number 9. Fluttershy cheering.
Now, what have we learned?
Lots of control,
Good.
screaming and hollering,
Yes, and most importantly,
passion.
right. So now that you know the elements of a good cheer, let's hear one.
Yay.
Ugh, you're gonna cheer for me like that? Louder.
Yay.
Louder!
Yay.
Louder!
Yay.
Ugh.
Too loud.
Number 8.
There doesn't seem to be a thing
Curses.
wrong with her. Fluttershy? Are you okay? Is there something wrong with you? Would you care to tell us? So, you're not gonna tell us? Yes, you're not, or yes, you will?
Good gravy, girl. What's wrong with you?
I don't want to talk about it.
This is hilarious! Look at all of you. We got Harity, Rainbow Crush, Speedy Pie, Apple Teeny, Flutter Guy, and... I got nothing. Twilight Sparkle. I mean, seriously, I can't even work with that.
This is no joke, Spike. Now start looking for more books so I can find a cure.
Number 7. Forever. I know this one has been done to death, but I still love it. Mainly the way she continues to follow Twilight throughout the episode.
Trust you, and losing a friend's trust is the fastest way to lose a friend forever. But forever!
My lips are sealed.
But instead, I'm just jealous. Oh, please promise you won't tell her I feel this way. Please, 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 please.
You have my word. Losing a friend's trust is the fastest way to lose a friend.
Forever!
Oh, really? Well, if you want to know the truth, Rarity...
Oh, what were you about to say? Forever!
Nothing.
You think Rarity would be devastated.
But Rarity told me...
Juicy!
Spike has a crush on Rarity.
And you are doing so well.
Oh, and as a bonus, since this was in the same episode, Fluttershy's screaming. So, this would be 6.5 or something.
Feel better?
No.
Number 6. Fluttershy's frustration with the animals at the gala. The things a naturalist has to put up with.
You do the pony pokey and you give a little shout. Come out! That's what I'm talking about. I'll catch you yet, my pretties. Oh yes, as soon as one of you little birds or monkeys or bears touches this net, you'll be mine! Mine! Going to love me!
Number 5. Winter Wrap-Up. This is probably a favorite of a lot of fans. but it really is great. It was the first real full musical number we got with all the ponies singing, and at first I was thinking that would be boring to sit through because I usually hate musicals, especially when they're in cartoons, but this really impressed me. The instrumental part of the song is really well done, like all the music in the show, and the voices singing are enjoyable to listen to.
Let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap up, winter wrap up. 'Cause tomorrow spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow spring is here. Bringing home the southern birds. A Pegasus job begins and clearing all the gloomy skies. Let the sun shine in. We move the clouds and we melt the white snow. When the sun comes up, its warmth and beauty will glow.
Number 4. Rarity's complaining and whining. I like this moment mainly because Rarity turns into a sophisticated lady into a whiny bitch in 10 seconds flat. That's right, I said it. We all still love her though.
Breath, the stench of all you dogs makes me nauseating. You look and smell like you haven't bathed in weeks. Have you never heard of soap? You could all do with a good round of soap and water. Oh, water, water. I'm terribly thirsty. Can I please have some water?
Good gracious, I can't take this anymore! Be quiet, Pony!
And that's another thing. I would appreciate it if you'd stop calling me Pony. I am a lady, and I wish to be addressed as such. So you may call me Miss, or Rarity, or Miss Rarity.
Enough! You're whining! It hurts!
Whining? I am not whining. I am complaining. Do you want to hear whining? This is whining.
Oh, this harness is too tight. It's going to chafe. Can't you loosen it? Oh, it hurts and it's so nasty. Why didn't you clean it first? It's going to leave a stain. The wagon's getting heavy. Why do I have to pull it?
Make it stop! Stop whining!
But I thought you wanted whining.
We'll do anything, Pony!
Number 3. The Sonic Rainboom. Not the first episode it appears in, though. I'm talking about the very first time she does it in the flashback, mainly because of a few different things.
Most people thought that the Sonic Rainboom was just an old mare's tale. But that day, the day I discovered racing,
That face.
legends were true. I made the impossible happen. And that, little ones, is how you earn a cutie mark.
Whoa. Wait a second. I heard that
And then we find out that Sonic Rainboom actually helped the others find their own passions as well.
I never would have learned I could communicate with them and gotten my cutie mark. I heard that boom, and right afterwards there's this amazing rainbow that taught me to smile.
When I got my cutie mark, I saw a rainbow that pointed me home. I bet it was your Sonic Rainboom.
There was an explosion I could never explain when I got my cutie mark.
This is uncanny. If that explosion didn't happen when it did, I would have blown my entrance exam. Rainbow Dash, I think you helped me earn my cutie mark too.
We all owe our cutie marks to you. Do you realize what this means? All of us had a special connection before we even met.
We've been BFFs forever.
And look at that face.
Know it.
Come here, y'all.
Oh, I love you guys.
And finally we see that Scootaloo truly is a tomboy.
Come on, Crusaders. Maybe we just need to try zip-lining again.
Hey, how about a song? Oh, yeah, definitely.
Number 2. Art of the Dress. Another musical number, this time with Rarity singing solo until the end. It's separated into 2 different parts. One where she sings about making the dresses, then she sings about trying to please her friends. It's the second part of the song I want to focus on though, because that's the main reason I like this so much. It sort of shows how much a designer is put through when they're trying to please a client, whether it be making a dress, drawing a plan for a building like my dad does, or requesting sketches from a friend, which I did recently, and this episode and song reminded me of what I was doing when I was being a little bit too critical of his work.
Wait until you see it in the light. I'm sewing them together.
Don't you think my gown would be more me with some lollipops? Well, I think balloons. Well, do it!
Hour by hour, one more change. I'm sewing them together. Take great pains. Fluttershy, you're putting me in a bind. Rainbow Dash,
And now, number 1. Pinkie's breakdown. All of it. From the beginning where she starts being suspicious to where she goes completely insane. So basically the entire episode of Party of One. So here are a few clips from the episode, all leading up to Pinkie's psychotic breakdown.
Howdy, partner.
Mind if I take a look inside the barn?
No, yes, you can't come in here.
Rainbow Dash just went in there.
Oh, well, she was just bringing in some supplies. Yep, supplies for the renovation. Fixing up the whole thing, top to bottom. Lots of construction going on in there right now.
You heard her? Construction.
Yep, construction. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okie dokie Loki. Secrets and lies. It's all secrets and lies with those ponies. They're up to something gummy, something they don't want me to know about. Well, I'm gonna know about it. I'm gonna know about it big time. And I know just who's gonna tell me all about it. Tell me all about it big time!
What do you want to hear? Tell me what you want me to say, and I'll say it.
Tell me that my friends are all lying to me and avoiding me because they don't like my parties and they don't want to be my friends anymore!
Your friends are all lying to you and avoiding you because they don't like your parties and they don't want to be your friends anymore.
Aha! I knew it! Oh no! My friends don't like my parties and they don't want to be my friends anymore.
So...
Thank you all so much for coming. It means so much to Gummy.
Could I have some more punch?
Well, of course you can have some more punch, Mr. Turnip.
This is one great party. You really outdone yourself.
Why, thank you, Rocky.
I'm having a delightful time as well.
I'm so glad, Sir Lancelot. Anything for you, Madame LaFlower.
I'm just glad none of them ponies showed up.
Oh, they're not so bad.
Not so bad, police!
So those are my top 10 moments of Season 1. I hope to enjoy many more moments of this show when Season 2 rolls around, and I may do episode reviews once that happens. Don't worry about this channel turning into a pony channel though. There are still many more ideas I have for other videos going around in my head. They're just not that prominent at the moment. To end this video with a question, if you're a pony fan, then what were your favorite moments of Season 1 that I left out? I'm Paleo, thank you for watching.
You know what? I'm not gonna speak to them ever again, and I'm not gonna invite them to another party as long as I live! They don't deserve to be invited to my parties! Not after the way they've been acting. These speak-up
losers!
Yes, that's right!
Well done. Yeah, you show up!
Like I said in my top 10 moments of Season 1, I'm going to be doing episode reviews of Season 2. I'm not quite sure how the format is going to go, but I'll learn as I do them. Even though I only started getting into this show recently, it seems like I've been waiting just as long as everyone else.
Now I know that's a lie.
Okay, maybe not. But still, I'm glad to finally be able to view new episodes and be a part of this. But enough of that, on with the review. In this episode, The Return of Harmony Part 1, an ancient evil named Discord is let loose from this Somme prison, and his goal is to break up order in Equestria. It starts with some very strange weather as the main cast tries to fix it. And I like how Pinkie Pie isn't bothered by it at all. Then Princess Celestia calls them for a sort of state of emergency in Equestria. There we discover who Discord is, and that the elements of harmony are gone.
I have total confidence that you will be able to defeat Discord with these.
Well, shit. Again, Pinkie Pie isn't bothered.
Oh well, if anyone needs me, I'll be outside in the chocolate petals with a giant swizzle straw.
I did read a couple of spoilers beforehand when they started rising up, but I didn't know anything other than Discord was going to be a sort of chaotic villain, and I really love the way he acts and sounds. If you're a fan of Star Trek The Next Generation and he sounds familiar, that's because he's voiced by the same actor who played Q.
This doesn't make sense.
Makes sense? Oh, what fun is there in making sense?
Discord, show yourself!
Did you miss me, Celestia? I miss you. It's quite lonely being encased in stone, but you wouldn't know that, would you? Because I don't turn ponies into stone.
Enough! What have you done with the elements of harmony?
Well, I just borrowed them for a teensy little while.
You'll never get away with this, Discord.
Oh, I'd forgotten how grim you can be, Celestia. It's really quite boring.
When discussing Discord with another friend, he mentioned how he points out the flaws with each element of harmony and how there can be situations in which they lead to bad circumstances. I never really connected it like that when I first watched the episode, but once he told me and I saw it again, I saw that and I thought it was pretty clever writing for a villain.
This is the greatest balloon garden I've ever seen! It's the first balloon garden I've ever seen, but still! What gives?
What's the matter, Pinkie Pie? I thought you appreciated a good laugh.
It's different. They're laughing at me.
It's hardly different. Your friends laugh at you all the time.
My friends laugh with me, not at me.
Oh, really?
I think this episode's pacing was a bit off, though. Maybe it's because they were trying to fit all of the main conflict into the latter half of the episode. And there's only so much you can do with a 22-minute show, even though this storyline is separated into 2 parts. Overall, I think the episode wasn't great, but pretty good, and excellent for a season premiere. I just wish I didn't have to wait for the next episode, because...
I want it now!
Oh well. Stay tuned for another review next week. I'm Paleo, thank you for watching. This review was a bit shorter than I thought it would be. Oh well, I'll get the hang of it soon.
You should see the looks on your faces. Priceless.
Hold on a second. Eternal chaos comes with chocolate rain, you guys. Chocolate rain!
Alright, we finally have part 2, so let me get straight to reviewing it. In this episode, we start to see the main 6 fight even more with each other, and Twilight's frustration with them as she figures out just where Discord hid the elements of harmony. Discord isn't worried though, since all the ponies are becoming less like themselves, and the elements won't work if they're not friends. He jokes about how the magic of friendship can help Twilight, even though that's what he fears the most. He's confident that Twilight won't be able to bring the main 6 back together, and continues to spread disharmony across Ponyville as he wants to make it the chaos capital of Equestria. By the way, I totally called the Ponyville and Applejack's vision to be what it's like in this episode. There's quite a lot of silly things in this episode that appear, and don't really seem that threatening.
My stomach! Twilight, you've got to see what I just did. It's priceless.
Then again, this is a show for kids. Though in a recent interview with Jason Thiessen, the new guy in charge of the show, he stated that a lot of what they put into the show is actually what they put in to entertain themselves rather than the audience. And it was Lauren Faust's idea to put in Discord since she had been binging on Star Trek The Next Generation and wanted a character resembling the behavior of Q. I think this part was a bit funnier than part 1, and had more powerful moments like when all the ponies started turning gray, and Twilight gives up and turns gray herself because she becomes hopeless that she'll never get her friends back together.
Losers. Fine, leave. See if I care. I don't need you guys either. With friends like you, who needs enemies?
Again, I felt like this episode's pacing was a little off, but only for the first time I watched it. For some reason, it just felt like it was going by 1,000,000 miles an hour. I think that may be just because I was looking at the time that had gone by while I was watching the episode, and I really didn't want it to end, since I always have this uncontrollable smile when I watch the show, and having new episodes pleases me greatly. After reading the interview with Jason Thiessen, I'm glad to see the show is in such great hands. This two-parter was nice, but I'm ready to get back to the regular episodes. And if the interview is any indication about how this season's going to be like, then I think we're in for some great stuff. Unfortunately, there is a gap between now and episode 3, so there won't be a new review anytime soon. Hopefully this gap won't be too long. I thought it was just going to be no new episode next weekend. Which works out for me since I'm going camping again, though I've also heard that episode 3 won't be for another 3 weeks, or maybe longer. And if so, it's going to be a long 3 weeks. I'm Paleo, thank you for watching.
Get back! All of you! This is my book, and I'm gonna read it!
But Twilight, aren't you missing some, Pony?
Nope. We got the liar, the grump, the hoarder, and the brute. That just about covers it.
What about Rainbow Dash?
Congratulations, Spike. You're the new Rainbow Dash. Now let's go!
A quick note before I get started. The reviews from now on will probably contain spoilers since I want to summarize the plots and go over the moral portrayed in each episode. That's a fair warning, right? It's been 3 weeks since the end of the Return of Harmony episodes, and now we're finally back to the regular episodes of Friendship is Magic, with Twilight and her friends learning a valuable moral about friendship, so everything's back to normal.
Good thing we don't have anything to report to Princess Celestia this week. I don't think I could write another word.
We haven't sent a letter to Princess Celestia this week?
Well, almost normal. This episode, titled Lesson 0, is about Twilight not having a letter ready to send to Princess Celestia for her findings on friendship. The episode begins with Twilight doing a few errands, having Spike as her lackey, and then freaking out in the middle of the day because she hasn't learned anything throughout the week about friendship. She goes around town trying to find some pony with a friendship problem, but everyone seems to be doing fine.
Listen, Rainbow, I know you're upset with Applejack, but don't worry. Whatever it is that has come between you two, I'm sure that I, as a good friend, can help you resolve your problems.
What are you talking about?
Oh, Rainbow Dash, you don't have to hide your feelings from me. I can tell you two must have had a terrible fight. Now, why don't you tell me all about your issues with Applejack?
I don't have any issues with Applejack.
You don't?
The more ponies she meets up with, the more Twilight gets worried because the day is almost over, and she'll miss her deadline. Her friends listen to her problem, but they seem to ignore it since it doesn't really seem like such a big deal. This only causes Twilight to freak out more, and basically have a breakdown of the party of one scale, and she decides that if she can't find a friendship problem, then she's going to make one. Eventually Twilight causes a bit of chaos. Not like that, and then Princess Celestia has to come and save the day. They go back to Twilight's library, and then it's time for the moral at the end of the episode. All of the ponies learn that they shouldn't take a friend's worries too lightly if it's something that's really troubling them, and Twilight is relieved that she doesn't have to report to Celestia every week, but rather only when she learns something about friendship, and the princess tells that to all of them. Since this is my first time reviewing a regular episode, here's the laydown of how I'm going to go over the end of each one. First, I'll talk about the moral. Second, I'll talk about the humor. And third, my overall enjoyment factor, and some other things I might want to mention. So first, the moral. I think it was a pretty important one, since it does tell us that we shouldn't take our friends' worries too lightly, and that if we do, we might make things worse. So even if you think your friend is freaking out over nothing, make sure to provide comfort to prevent them from going insane. Though I think the fact that Celestia said that Twilight didn't have to provide a letter to her every week was a bit of an excuse for the writers to have more freedom rather than having the moral every episode formula. Which I don't mind. I'd like them to have the characters explore Equestria a bit more without having to be stuck in Ponyville, and encounter other unique situations that don't necessarily need a moral. That's just a bit of speculation on my part, though. Now second, the humor. There were quite a lot of things I loved about this episode, like Spike interacting with the background and foreground effects, the windmill and sun acting as a timer, and we even get to see a bit of fan service with Rainbow Dash wearing sunglasses, a sonic rain bomb, and Derpy fighting with the Mare. Well, either that's fan service or the animators were just having fun. There were also some really great faces from Twilight in this. You can definitely tell they were having a lot of fun with her expressions. Overall, I'm really glad that we're back to the normal episodes. I was worried that the pacing was going to feel off with this episode as well after I mentioned it in my last two reviews, but the pacing felt just right for this one. I hope you enjoyed the review, and be sure to leave me some feedback about how I'm doing them. I'm Paleo, thank you for watching.
What a drama queen!
Relatively speaking.
It's been quite a while since we first encountered Princess Luna, and fans have been excited for this episode since it focuses on her, and now I get to see what she's been doing all this time and what she's like.
Citizens of Ponyville! We have graced your tiny village with our presence so that you might behold the real Princess of the Night!
Okay then. In this episode, Luna Eclipsed, the plot focuses on a celebration similar to Halloween called Nightmare Night, where the ponies dress up in costumes to disguise themselves from Nightmare Moon. All is well until Princess Luna decides to show up and introduce herself to the citizens of Ponyville. But it seems that being locked away for 1,000 years and not being familiar with the current customs has caused her behavior to seem frightening to the rest of the ponies, such as addressing subjects in a boisterous Canterlot voice and using the royal we pronoun. It's frightening to every pony. That is, except for Twilight. Twilight decides to talk to Princess Luna so she can start interacting with the ponies normally. Twilight takes Luna around Ponyville for the other ponies to help her change her behavior, and they first visit Fluttershy since she is the gentle one, though on Nightmare Night she is a bit more frightened than usual.
Go away! No candy here! Visitors not welcome on Nightmare Night!
Fluttershy, it's me, Twilight!
It is you. Oh, a Nightmare Moon. Nightmare Moon?
One problem they keep encountering is Pinkie and the kids she has following her always get scared when Luna is doing something that's seemingly frightening, which causes Twilight and Luna to become a bit more frustrated. Eventually Luna has had it with all the misunderstandings, and decides that the celebration is insulting to her, and cancels it forever. Twilight doesn't give up though. She decides to try to talk to Pinkie to prevent her from screaming, and convince her that Luna isn't scary.
No! No shrieking. No squealing or screaming either, okay? There's something I want you to see, and I promise that it's safe, but you really, really, really can't shriek. Do you promise not to shriek? Mm-hmm.
Soon afterwards, it turns out that Pinkie and the kids were actually having fun running away from Luna because they wanted to be scared on Nightmare Night. This gives Twilight an idea, and everything works out for Luna and her image. So she decides that Nightmare Night would go on. The moral of this episode was that even though someone may appear frightening or intimidating, when they are offered friendship, they may find that they aren't that scary. Though one of the main things that was covered in the moral was how if you were to offer someone friendship, that they may be able to find it themselves, just pretty much opening the door for them, as Twilight compares Princess Luna to herself when she first visited Ponyville. And it's a nice moral, though a bit vague, but all of the M.A. Larson episodes are sort of like that. The humor in this episode was pretty good. Not as consistently good as it was in the last episode, but I did find parts where I was literally giggling uncontrollably, like with the Fluttershy interaction and Pinkie's antics.
Twilight Sparkle has spoken of the sweetness of thy voice. We ask that thou teachest us to speak as thou speakest.
Okay.
Shall our lessons begin?
Okay.
Shall we mimic thy voice?
Okay.
How is this?
Perfect. Lesson over.
I also noticed that they're making Derpy a lot more obvious in Season 2 episodes so far. Instead of being in the background, she's front and center. There are a few things I have questions about with this episode. First, what was Luna doing all this time? Was she just in Canterlot? And if so, why didn't Celestia teach her how to act in modern Equestria? Rarity was also missing in this episode, though I guess you could make the excuse that she was the one preparing all the costumes, so she was so busy that she never got the time to do anything. Overall, this episode was a pretty fun ride. We got to see Luna with a great new design, and see a Halloween-themed episode. Seeing the ponies dress up in costume was a delight. To close this review, another thing I wanted to mention about this episode was the new character they introduced named Pip. He's a token British character, and I'm pretty sure that they are going to show him again according to the way he was revealed and involved in the episode. I want to know, what do you think about this new character? Do you love him or hate him, or are you indifferent? Personally, he won my heart over when this happened.
Princess Luna, I know there's not going to be any more Nightmare Night, but do you suppose maybe you could come back next year and scare us again anyway?
Child, art thou saying that thou likest me to scare you?
It's really fun. Scary, but fun.
It's his?
Yeah, Nightmare Night is my favorite night of the year.
Well then, we shall have to bring
Nightmare Night back!
Whoa! You're my favorite princess ever!
Aw, turns out there's a Luna fanboy on the show. Anyway, that's the review. Please subscribe to stay tuned for next week's review. I'm Paleo, thank you for watching.
Most wonderful of nights. It's not over yet.
What are you gonna do?
I'm going to do what I do best. Lecture her! Pinkie Pie, you're a genius!
No, I'm not. I'm a chicken.
Even though Rarity and Sweetie Belle are my least favorite ponies in the show, though that's not saying much because I love all the characters, and we didn't get to see Rarity in the Nightmare Night episode, I was still disappointed that we didn't get to see a new episode because of the Hub's release schedule being so out of whack.
Not every other week, not every 10 days, every single week!
Okay, that joke has been done to death now, so let me get on with the review. In this episode called Sisterhooves Social, Sweetie Belle is staying with Rarity for the week after being dropped off by their parents. The episode pretty much starts off with Sweetie Belle doing things that bother Rarity, even though Sweetie Belle just wants to help. Now, I don't know much about the dynamics of sibling relationships since I'm an only child, but I really felt the frustration from both Rarity and Sweetie Belle in this episode. Both of their positions as big sister and little sister can be easily understood by the viewer. Rarity is frustrated that she can't get Sweetie Belle to stay still and not mess up anything, and Sweetie Belle is frustrated that she can't do anything with her big sister, that she looks up to despite Rarity's constant complaints about her.
My inspiration room! What did you do? What did you do? When I saw the big mess in your room, I thought I'd clean it up for you.
This wasn't a mess! It was organized chaos! I was just about finished planning my new fashion line, and you went and you put everything away!
But every time I make a mess, you get upset.
But this was my mess, in my house! And now I have to start from scratch!
But I thought it would make you happy.
Later on, Sweetie Belle encounters Applebloom, and she finds out about the Sisterhooves Social, which is an event held at Sweet Apple Acres where the sister pairs can compete. Sweetie tells Rarity about it, but she thinks it's uncouth. Then Sweetie hangs out with Applejack and Applebloom for a while, and we get to see the difference between the two sister pairs in the show and how they act towards each other. This is as far as I'm going to go with the plot this time, since it was suggested that I do less of a plot summary, though I try to insert commentary with that, and also because for this episode I don't want to spoil the ending in case you haven't seen it, since it's a pretty touching moment in how Rarity and Sweetie Belle resolve their differences. I can still tell you about the moral though. The moral is basically about being siblings and how it takes a lot of teamwork and compromise if they are to make their relationship a healthy one. Also, someone pointed out in my Tumblr that they're sending a letter about being good sisters to Princess Celestia of all ponies. Well, of course, she's the one that they're all supposed to report. Oh, I see what you're saying. And now I'm gonna get hate for using that. Anyway, the humor in the show is pretty mild from what we've experienced in the season so far. But I do notice that Granny Smith continues to get funnier every time she appears. They also reinforce the fact that all hooved animals can talk.
Way to corral some critters, sis!
You could have just asked.
And this is just me, but I find it funny that Spike is every pony's lackey now. I'd like to start adding another section to these reviews to talk about the animation in the show as well, because I thought there were a lot of great scenes in this where they really showed what they can do with the characters' expressiveness, and I like how they're not afraid to push the limit in the abilities of the ponies to make different faces. There was also some pretty good scenes during the race in the Sisterhooves Social event, though as a lot of people noticed, some of the ponies in the race were also in the audience. Overall, I think this episode wasn't really that great, but it was still one of the better episodes that focused on some pretty good character development. Like I said earlier, I was disappointed last weekend that we didn't get to see a new episode, and I was really looking forward to this episode even though it was focusing on one of my least favorite characters. But after seeing this, Rarity may have moved up in my ranking. By the way, since there was no new episode to review last weekend, I was able to finish my video called The Saviors of Modern Cartoons, which you should check out if you like cartoons in general. And there's a surprise for Friendship is Magic fans at the tail end of it. Right now, the schedule on the hub seems to be pretty set for the next 4 weeks, so I'll finally be able to get the hang of doing the reviews every week.
Not every other week, not every 10 days, every single week.
Okay, sorry, but yeah, until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe.
You see, we are apple pie! But apart, all we are is just a pile of mush and some crumbly, dry mess.
Tinkleberg.
Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who likes the episodes that focus on the Cutie Mark Crusaders. They may seem a little dumb at times, but they're still cute to see trying different things. In this episode, Cutie Pox, it starts out with Applebloom and the others trying to get their cutie marks as always. They begin at a bowling alley, and I must say it was a surprise to see that a bowling alley even existed in this world. Though I guess they had to do it, since the creators followed a sort of tradition of making a reference to the Big Lebowski after having one in Foster's and the Powerpuff Girls. And I'm glad to see them still do that, still acknowledging that adults also watch these cartoons. Anyway, the bowling doesn't really pan out as the three had hoped, and Applebloom gets a bit more discouraged than usual. So she heads into the forest to wander around alone for a while. She falls and chips a tooth while meeting Zecora, then they go back to her hut, and there Applebloom becomes fascinated with all the potions that Zecora has, which gives her an idea.
And not only stuff that fixes the bad, but stuff that brings the good. Good health, good hair, good heavens! I bet you can mix up a brew to fix anything.
There are many mixtures in this room, but none for what you want, dear Applebloom. A magic potion does not hold the key for a cutie mark. Time is the only remedy.
Fine.
Even though Zecora clearly states that she doesn't have anything for Applebloom to help her get her cutie mark, Applebloom still tries using a potion made with a flower called Heart's Desire so she can find her talent quickly. At first it seems to work, as she shows up in the schoolyard showing off her new talent.
That's it? That's your talent? Spinning a hoop around your waist? Please. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet.
But then another cutie mark appears, and apparently she has two talents. Later on, a third one appears, and this continues throughout the episode, as we find out that she has the Cutie Pox, making Applebloom's actions become a bit chaotic. Once Applebloom is cured by a flower that Zecora brings, we learn the moral of the episode. The moral is about patience and being honest with oneself when concerning your passion in life, which I think is a very important lesson since I see that happen to a lot of people, including a few friends, where they are stuck doing something that they say they're happy with, but don't really seem to enjoy it that much. The humor in this episode was again mild compared to the first few episodes of the season, and again, Granny Smith gets funnier by having a rusty sound effect for her movement.
Why, the way you were a-hooping and a-hopping and kicking and spinning reminded me of when I was a spry young filly.
That's really all I have to say about the humor in this episode, since a lot of it focused on the animations of the characters for laughs. Like with Twilight's hair curling into Rarity's style, and then Spike instantly falling for her. But this episode wasn't so much funny as it was fun. It was a joy to see Applebloom doing a ton of different things due to the Cutie Pox. A couple of other things I enjoyed about the animation in this episode was Skooloo's fluttering and Pinkie's scene. For some reason, the scene with Pinkie looked incredibly smooth to me. Like I said, this was just a fun episode. Not the most humorous in the season so far, but still fun to watch. And I'm glad that we get to see Zecora a bit more and play a more vital role. Though I do admit, having her speak in rhymes all the time can get a bit grating. I feel Applejack's pain.
Well then, give them to her, quick!
These seeds must be planted in the ground. With the truth, they'll grow and the cure is found.
Come again?
I'm Paleo, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next week's review.
I was the one who leaked my song. I just couldn't help it. We're 6 episodes into the season and we still don't have a song. I just wanted to sing so badly.
And that was my terrible attempt at voice acting. I've always wondered whether they were going to address the fact that Rainbow Dash was the only pony without a pet. So I was pretty excited for this episode after I saw the synopsis for it. In this episode, we start off with Rainbow Dash sleeping and dreaming about the others' pets when she's woken up by the noises of the other 5 and their animals. It presents a bit of an awkward situation when the others see Rainbow Dash there, but Dash tells them not to worry about it. It doesn't take long for her to grow a bit envious of the others and their pets, and decides that she wants one. Fluttershy is instantly excited by the proposition and escorts Rainbow Dash to her place to decide on a pet. Then we enter the very first song of Season 2. This was a big surprise for me, and probably everyone else, since we didn't really expect a song in this episode, let alone having Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash singing a duet together. I would have bet my money on Pinkie Pie having the first song, if anything. Anyway, since this is the first song we have, in my reviews I'm going to go over the songs as soon as I mention them in the plot summary of the episodes that have them. For this song, it felt more like a musical than any of the other songs we've heard in the series so far. With this, there isn't really any main chorus, or something. Excuse me for my lack of knowledge on the subject. Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash carry out an actual conversation within the song, and that's what characteristic I think of when I hear the term musical.
Fluttershy pal, this won't cut it. I need a pet to keep up with me. Something awesome, something flying with coolness that defies gravity.
I'm sensing you want an animal that can fly.
You think?
I have plenty of wonderful creatures who soar in the sky. Like a sweet hummingbird or a giant monarch butterfly.
Better, but cooler.
I see. How about an owl or a wasp or a toucan? There's so many wonderful creatures alike, so that there are falcons and eagles. They are both quite regal. Or perhaps what you need is a dark and mysterious bat.
Now you're talking.
Unfortunately, though, I wasn't really that impressed with this song. I know a lot of people were, but I just wasn't for some reason. Maybe it's because it didn't have a catchy chorus. Though I have to admit, it was fun seeing how they revealed the animals after singing about them. After the musical number, it's decided that Dash will hold a competition to see who will be her pet, showing off speed, agility, guts, and style, as well as coolness, awesomeness, and radicalness.
Aren't those all the same thing? You would think that, Twilight, and that's why you would never qualify to be my pet.
All of the animals show off their abilities until a final test is held where they race against Rainbow Dash through a treacherous gorge. Dash gets a little careless though, since she's been through the gorge many times, and accidentally causes an avalanche, and gets her wings stuck under a rock. Let the parodies of 127 Hours begin. The other animals zoom past her, but the turtle...
Tortoise.
The tortoise, who had been trying to get Dash's attention in the previous competition, stops to help her out with his surprising strength. And after he carries her to the finish line where the others are waiting, we learn the moral. The moral is about how you shouldn't choose your friends based on physical attributes or skills, but rather for their determination and loyalty. And I think it's pretty nice that Rainbow Dash, being the element of loyalty, forgot about that important trait for a friend to have, but eventually remembered that it was the most important to her. So now Rainbow Dash has a pet turtle.
Tortoise!
Pet tortoise, named Tank. People were sort of calling for this to happen, since it just seems funny to have a slow animal be the pet of the fastest pony, and also because the toy sort of foreshadowed this episode happening. Minus the song, which I wasn't really impressed with, I really liked this episode. Probably because it dealt with the animals other than the ponies. As you can probably tell, I liked how they used the turtle-tortoise correction as part of the humor, and seeing Dash in a pose that looks just so 90s was hilarious to me. Pretty much everything that Dash said and did really supplemented the humor for this episode.
You call that flapping? That's better!
The animations of both Dash and the animals were fantastic, and there were a lot of great moments during the race with her. And I think I found my new favorite creature that inhabits Equestria with the quarry eels. I love the way they look. So there we go. We're 7 episodes into the season and we finally have a song, and now all of the main 6 have pets. There were a lot of jokes about how Scootaloo would enter the competition to be Dash's pet, but that didn't happen, even though I was secretly wishing for a Scootaloo-focused episode. Although, I read a synopsis about the next episode, about a mysterious masked mare that's stealing Rainbow Dash's thunder. I don't have high hopes for this, but I'm guessing that there's a 5% chance it'll be Scootaloo. It said mare, so probably not. But I can dream, can't I? Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thanks for watching.
Whoa, that was truly awesome! But I'm afraid this is the radicalness competition, so I'm gonna have to take some points off.
I didn't like this episode. I think it's probably my least favorite of the series so far. And definitely my least favorite of Season 2 as it stands. Prepare yourselves. This is going to be my first negative review. This episode focuses on Rainbow Dash being a hero that saves ponies in danger. It starts off with Scootaloo hosting a fan club for Rainbow Dash, and I actually think the fan club was one of the only redeeming qualities about this episode. But that's mainly because I love Scootaloo. After that, there's a couple of sequences where Rainbow Dash starts saving ponies from danger. At first she's a bit surprised by the praise she's getting, but then she lets it get to her head. The others are a bit annoyed by this, and sort of secretly nod at each other for what they're going to do to teach Rainbow Dash a lesson. Now, I've heard people say that when rewatching this episode, they found it better, but me, I found it worse. Mainly because I could point out the other things wrong with it. So I'm going to zoom past the plot now so I can get to the main thing that I think is wrong with this episode. The other 5 of the main 6 create this hero nicknamed Mare Duel by the Mare. The hero always tends to outshine Rainbow Dash in her abilities, and later it's revealed that Mare Duel was actually a combination of the other 5 working together. The moral of this episode was about humility and knowing when to show it and stop being a braggart. Now I've heard a lot of people compare this to the moral of Boast Busters, but the lesson in that was more about not being afraid to show your talent despite your modesty. And this one was pretty much the complete opposite, telling the moral that showing off is a bad thing and that humility is the way to go. I think both morals are important, but I feel that this episode did a pretty poor execution of it. Before I get into the things I didn't like about this episode, let me go over the things I did like before all of you who liked it chastise me. The Rainbow Dash fan club. Despite others hating it, I love that, and I like how fans had Rainbow Lightning stickers over their own cutie marks. The animation was good in this episode. There were quite a few facial expressions I liked. Nothing spectacular, but still pretty good. All of the references to superheroes I enjoyed, like the style of the Mare Duel costume as a reference to Darkwing Duck. Apparently one of the storyboard artists worked on the comics. The reference to Spider-Man with the friendly neighborhood Rainbow Dash catchphrase.
Never fear, your friendly neighborhood Rainbow Dash is here!
Then there was the reference to Batman the Animated Series with the posters and the music that resembled the theme.
Thank you, Mare Duel.
I can't believe it! Mare Duel is stronger than me? Well.
Okay, now for what I didn't like. Where to begin? Well, first of all, I don't like how in this episode we're supposed to antagonize Rainbow Dash because the others are annoyed by her bragging. I didn't feel bad for their annoyance. I felt bad for Rainbow Dash after she was outshined. Even Scootaloo doesn't comfort her. She just makes things worse.
Have I changed? Same sleek body, same flowing mane, same spectacular hooves. Nope, I'm still awesome. They're wrong. But then why am I all alone? I hate being all alone.
Hey, Rainbow Dash! I knew it!
No need to apologize, Squirt. Any pony can make a mistake.
Mistake? What mistake?
Wait a minute. Why are you here?
To invite you to join us. We're heading off to the thank you parade for Ponyville's greatest hero, Mare Duel.
No! No way! Can't you see I want to be alone? I love being alone.
Oh, okay. See you later then.
I mean, why didn't they just, I don't know, talk to her about her bragging? Even in this scene where they get the idea, they don't talk to her about it. It's like they're all talking behind her back to teach her a lesson. What kind of friends are they? At least with Party of One, they were planning on something nice. And then they had the nerve to brag about the hero they created right in front of her. What hypocrites. In Green Isn't Your Color, Rarity and Fluttershy were keeping secrets from each other, but at least they confess to each other and talk about it at the end. But in this, it just makes the other 5 seem like assholes. Then there's the return of, the Pinkie sense. I know a lot of people like this returning, but I don't. I would have rather it fade away into obscurity and completely forgotten rather than having to see it again. I don't think I have to explain why. But I'll explain anyway. See, Pinkie doesn't need a special sense for what she did. She's already really agile, but she's also very observant. Notice that during the construction scene, Rainbow Dash notices a beam about to fall. Well, Pinkie can pretty much notice anything going on since she's so hyper. Even when that pot fell near the end, she could have seen it in the corner of her eye or something. Then the final thing I disliked about this episode was the ending. It was pretty much the others telling Rainbow Dash the moral, and not Rainbow Dash realizing it and explaining it herself. At least Dash actually did that in the last episode. Oh, and then there's this. Winking at the audience at the end of an episode? Seriously? Man, who wrote this episode? Was it Dave Polsky? I bet it was him because of the Pinkie sense. Wait, it wasn't? Then who? Meriwether Williams? A new writer? Oh, no wonder. That explains why I didn't like this episode. Well, if she ever writes another one, I hope she'll be able to redeem herself with me. This is her first try, so I won't cringe at seeing her name on the next episode she writes. I'm Paleo, and I did not care for this episode. Thank you for watching. See you next week.
Danger's my middle name.
Rainbow Danger Dash!
Well, I'm convinced. Rarity is the best pony. Twilight is still my favorite, but every episode that has a focus on Rarity has been pretty good to outstanding. In this episode titled Sweet and Elite, Rarity is staying in Canterlot for a bit, though I don't think we ever hear the reason why she's visiting. Maybe it's just to get out of Ponyville for a while. She starts to make a few ponies notice her, but when she's revealed that she's from Ponyville, the two ponies that first greet her talk down to her. She's upset by this fact, but the next day when she's gathering materials to make Twilight a dress for her upcoming birthday, she bumps into a pony named Fancy Pants who is impressed that Rarity knows the princess and is staying in a suite at the castle. He then invites her to the Wonderbolt Derby, where Fancy Pants learns of Rarity's knowledge about the Wonderbolts, and when asked, Rarity lies about who Rainbow Dash is, but gets away with it. All of the other ponies are so impressed with Rarity that they invite her to different events, and even though Rarity is concerned about finishing Twilight's dress, she decides to go to these events, and then we enter the second song of Season 2, which I thought was amazing. My favorite song of Season 1 was Art of the Dress, so it's no surprise that I love this song that featured Rarity singing. Even though the song is pretty much about being popular and that doesn't seem to add much to the story as much as Art of the Dress did, this song is pretty much a montage, but it's still catchy and had an excellent melody, which was something I thought was missing from the first song of Season 2.
Every pony should know. Becoming as popular can be. Making my mark in high society. I'm the belle of the ball, the star of the show. Yeah, I'm the type of pony every pony should know. See how they hang on every word that I speak. My approving glance is what they all seek. I'm the creme de la creme, not just another Jane doll. I'm the type of pony every pony should know.
Afterwards, it's time for Rarity to leave, but she's invited to another event that's on the same day as Twilight's birthday, so she has to make the decision to stay or leave. She makes the decision to stay while lying about what's happening in the letter she sends to Twilight, but Twilight and the others show up in Canterlot to move the party there. Both the event Rarity's invited to and Twilight's party happen simultaneously as she hops in between each one. At first I thought this part of the episode was going to be predictable, as a lot of people have seemed to dislike the predictability of Season 2 so far. But in this episode, the way Rarity is able to get around her situation is both clever and hilarious. You end up thinking that she's going to be revealed at one point, when it turns out that everything just seems to work out in Rarity's favor.
What's with the croquet mallet? Duh, the one in your mouth? Oh, that croquet mallet! The truth is...
Were you at that other party in the garden? Rarity, I'm surprised at you.
Twilight, let me explain.
I hadn't realized you were such a savvy business pony.
You must understand.
All of those ponies look so posh. And with the Grand Galloping Gala coming up, I bet you could totally get some of them to buy your dresses. Very smart.
Why, yes, I didn't want you to think I was being rude, so that's exactly the reason I didn't tell you. The one and only reason.
Eventually it's revealed that Twilight and the others are Rarity's friends, and she stands up for them. Fancy Pants is actually impressed with them, and everything turns out for the better. The moral is sort of a home is where the heart is kind of moral, and that you shouldn't be ashamed of who your friends are or where you come from, if you truly like them, which I think is a touching lesson for Rarity to learn. The humor and animation in this episode was great. There were a lot of moments where I just giggled at the expressions Rarity made every time she lied. Then of course there's Pinkie's party cannon, and Twilight's dancing. We also got to see some appearances of one-shot characters from Season 1 appear in the song, like Photo Finish. And later we see the band ponies, including Octavia, and two new ones. Not sure what those things have to do with the review, but I thought I'd point them out. Overall, after last week's review, I'm glad to tell you that I love this episode. It's probably my favorite of the new season so far, next to Lesson 0. Though I'm also not glad because I don't really have much else to say about it other than this was a really good episode. Oh well, maybe I'll have more to say next week. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Oh, poor Opal. Where is the sick darling?
Oh, she's... Hold on a minute.
Huh?
I am so sorry about this.
She's resting on the bed. Poor baby. She looks awful.
This is only the second episode of the series where the focus is on Spike, and I have to say that I actually like this episode a lot better than All's Well That Ends Well. I know a lot of people didn't like that episode last season, but to me I was just indifferent towards it. Anyway, in this episode, it's Spike's birthday and all the ponies give him gifts. At first it seems harmless enough, but then Spike learns that if he tells some pony that it's his birthday, that he'll get something in return. He goes around town doing this until Twilight runs into him and scolds him for demanding gifts. The next day it turns out that Spike continued to hoard things from the residents of the town, and he's grown twice his normal size. They visit a doctor, a vet, and then Zecora to figure out what the problem is. It turns out that dragons start to grow when they are consumed by greed, which explains why dragons tend to hoard things in this world. Spike continues to grow as he steals from Applejack, Fluttershy, and Pinkie Pie, 3 characters who haven't had an episode yet this season, yet Rainbow Dash gets 2 in a row, and then he reaches his much larger size while at Sugar Cube Corner.
Pinkie Pie, stop giving him cake! I'm not giving him cake! I'm assaulting him with cake! How dare you take the cake!
He's completely out of control. Who knows where he'll go next?
Spike rampages through the town taking everything he can, and eventually takes Rarity. There are a ton of references to King Kong during this sequence. We even have the Wonderbolts show up as some sort of fighter pilot squadron, though I'm not quite sure how they were able to cut the scales off of Spike. They must be flying incredibly fast for that to happen. Spike starts to scale up the mountain near Ponyville, and Rarity starts to complain about her now ruined dress, still unaware that the dragon is actually Spike. Eventually Spike remembers who Rarity is, and how he had actually given her a ruby earlier in the episode, even though it was a present he was keeping for himself, displaying an act of generosity rather than greed, which causes him to revert back to his smaller self. The moral of this episode was a pretty obvious one. It was basically saying, being greedy is bad, it's better to give than receive. Which is actually kind of appropriate being the time of the holiday season right now. As far as the humor goes in this episode, there was nothing really that made me giggle too much. I've already mentioned the King Kong references, which were nice, but nothing that really made me laugh. Although there were some sound effects that I thought were funny, like when Zecora was fondling Spike's head. There was also the back and forth between Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash when trying to convince Spike to put Rarity down.
Right now! If you wouldn't mind, that is. I mean it, Dragon Boy! We'll be ever so grateful if you'd be so kind as to possibly consider... Drop her, Scaly!
And there was also some unintentional humor with Cheer Lee giving Spike that hat. Why did Cheer Lee have a hat when it seems like she was just shopping for groceries? The world may never know. The animation in this episode was great. The way they had Spike transform was pretty cool. And I'm actually glad that they decided to do a redesign of the grown Spike we saw previously in Cutie Mark Chronicles. His design just looks much cooler here. Overall, I'm glad that we got another Spike episode, and that we learned more about the life cycle of a dragon. It gives us a better idea of the mythos of this world, which M.A. Larson never fails to do every time he writes an episode. Isn't it strange how we had 2 episodes in a row where one of the characters had a birthday? Twilight's being in the last episode, and Spike's being in this one. Though you know who else has a birthday coming up? Me! That's right, my birthday is on the 15th. Though I'll be spending it working in a lab measuring and taking photos of salamanders. Don't worry though, it's something I want to do. And I won't be there all day. Anyway, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. See you next week.
The airplane's got him. Oh, no. It wasn't the airplanes. It was Beauty killed the beast.
It's the holiday season, and that means cartoons are showing their holiday specials. And Friendship is Magic finally has one for it. We had Winter Wrap-Up, which was a holiday in Ponyville, though it wasn't something that all of Equestria celebrated, and wasn't quite as festive as this. The episode Hearth Swarming Eve is about a holiday, Hearth Swarming Eve, and the ponies are putting on a play to celebrate it, since it's about the founding of Equestria. As Spike narrates, we get to learn throughout the play about how ponies lived before the founding of the country, and how there were the 3 tribes that seem to reluctantly work with each other for their own benefit. And after a while, a blizzard befalls the land they inhabit, and it causes problems for all the tribes. So they meet up to figure out a solution. In this, the main 6 act out the leaders of the 3 tribes. Rainbow Dash playing the commander of the Pegasi, Rarity playing the princess of the unicorns, and Pinkie Pie playing the chancellor of the earth ponies, with the other 3 playing the assistants according to what type of pony they are. It seems that each of the leaders are a bit corrupt in some way. Rarity is too snobbish, Pinkie Pie is too scatterbrained, and Rainbow Dash is too forceful. I love how we get to see the main 6 act out these characters that have traits that are somewhat similar to their own personalities. Yet in here, we get to see them at their extremities, since it's a play, and the writers have an excuse to make them act a bit out of character and more over the top. I think I love Pinkie Pie's role the most. She just had so many hilarious moments.
Well, it's only because you mean old Pegasuses are making it snow like crazy! Oh my gosh, hold on to your hooves! I am just about to be brilliant!
That'd be a first.
I have decided that the Earth Ponies are gonna go it alone!
Oh, so you mean the other tribes didn't come around? Shoot, I really thought we could get through to them if we...
Don't worry about them. We're the ones with all the food, right?
Actually, we're all out.
Fine. Then we'll have to go somewhere new where we can grow some new food. And with me as our fearless leader, what could go wrong?
Where should I start?
I also like how we get to see the play as if we're literally watching what happened, rather than just seeing a stage. I'm not sure if that was just for us viewers, or if they did it with their freaky unicorn magic somehow. Who knows? Anyway, the 3 tribes can't agree on anything to do about the blizzard, so they set off to find a new land. Eventually, the 3 leaders and assistants meet up with each other and claim the same area. This only causes another blizzard to arise, and then they take shelter in a cave. The leaders continue to argue with each other until the blizzard becomes so severe that it entraps them in ice. Here, Twilight mentions how Star Swirl the Bearded, awesome reference for continuity by the way, had taught her about Wendigos, which are winter spirits that feed on hatred and were the cause of the blizzard. The 3 assistants talk to each other and how they don't really hate one another as much as they dislike their superiors. They realize that even though they're all different, they're still all ponies.
This is our fault. We 3 tribes. We brought this blizzard to our home by fighting and not trusting each other. Now it's destroying this land too.
And now our bodies will become as cold as our hearts. All because we were foolish enough to hate.
Well, I don't hate you. I actually hate Commander Hurricane a lot more than I hate you guys. Actually, I don't really hate her. I just really dislike her.
Well, I don't hate you guys either.
Nor do I.
No matter what our differences, we're all ponies.
This causes the Wendigos to go away and freeze the frozen ponies. As far as the moral goes, well, this is kind of strange because we don't really have a clear-cut written letter to Princess Celestia like we usually do. Instead, the moral is in the play, showing us that even though we may have our differences, we're still all the same, species, I guess. I have a hard time with this because I'm an aspiring biologist, and when I see 3 animals that have clearly different features like wings and horns, then no, they're definitely not the same species. Unless it's sexual dimorphism. Oh well, I can forgive that. I mean, as much as I love to analyze the show, it's still just a cartoon. The humor in this episode came from the characters' performances, which I think they all did an excellent job of doing. I really thought we were going to find out something about Fluttershy, since she was really nervous before the play started. But to my surprise, she did really well. The animation was also really great. I already mentioned how I love Pinkie Pie in this, but her movements were just so incredibly well done here, and it made me smile every time she was on screen.
You take the map, while I enjoy some relief.
Yes, Chancellor Puddinhead.
Overall, I think this was a really nice holiday episode. It didn't really have anything to do with Christmas, not even about giving, though I guess you could say that it did have a lot to do with caring for your fellow pony, which is a sort of holiday vibe. I'm really glad that we got to see the story of how Equestria was founded. The song at the end was okay, though a bit weird to hear those choir voices coming from the main cast and the CMC. My only complaint about this episode is when they planted that flag, it showed an image of Celestia and Luna. Now, we already know that Celestia and Luna didn't come to Equestria until after Discord, as we learned in the first episode of this season. So why did the flag have them on it? Some people said that it was just because they were using a modern flag in the play. There were no mentions about what alicorns were or where they came from either. Oh well, maybe that'll be a story for another episode. I'm just surprised that M.A. Larson would let that slip. What do you mean he didn't write this episode? He always deals with the lore of the show. See, it says it right there in the opening credits. M.
Well, this can't be the same designer.
Holy crap, talk about redeeming yourself. Well, Miss Williams, you have gained my respect. But remember,
I've got my eye on you.
Well, that's the last episode until next year. We have a long break this time, so there won't be another review for quite a while. But in the meantime, I am working on something pretty big. It's my longest video project yet, and I hope to have it out before Christmas. If not around that time. So, think of it as a Christmas present from me to all of you subscribers. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Have a great holiday, and a happy heart-warming Eve.
I think I'm gonna call this new place, Dirtville!
How about Earth?
Earth! Congratulations to me for thinking of it, and that's how Earth was named. What, huh?
I mentioned in a couple of past reviews that every time Granny Smith appears, she has some pretty funny moments. And I feel like those moments have sort of been leading up to this episode. In this episode, Family Appreciation Day, it focuses on Applebloom being embarrassed by Granny Smith and her silly antics.
Oh, isn't this just precious? Please stop. And it is perfect for making our Zap Apple Jam. Shh, stop it, Granny. Granny, please. Those ponies over there are watching me. What? Are those fillies your friends? Hello, Half Pints friends. Hi, Granny Smith. Hi, Half Pints.
There is a special occasion that they hold at the school where one of the ponies brings in a family member to talk about themselves for a bit. We see Diamond Tiara bring in her father, Filthy Rich, that's seriously his name, and Cheerilee mentions that it's Applebloom's turn the next week. But Applejack and Big Macintosh are too busy to come to the school. So Diamond Tiara sort of intimidates Applebloom into bringing Granny Smith to the class. We see Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo try and get Applebloom out of taking Granny, but all their plans fail. We eventually see Granny Smith come to the school, and tell a story about how she and her family actually founded Ponyville. The class is so amazed by her story that they start applauding. The moral of this episode is, well, hard to say, because again, we don't have a written letter to Princess Celestia. Though I think that's a good thing, because that means the writers don't feel obligated to just write it out for the audience, and instead let the characters' emotions and actions present the moral and have the audience interpret it that way.
So if it weren't for you and the Zap Apples, Ponyville wouldn't even exist?
Darn tootin', little filly.
If it weren't for my Granny Smith, your daddy wouldn't have barnyard bargains. But she's just a kooky old lady. She is not a kooky old lady. She is the most amazing pony in all Ponyville.
As far as how I interpret it, I think it's saying how you should never really underestimate your family members or other people you know, because they may have some very surprising qualities about them. The humor in this episode was pretty good. There was obviously just about everything that Granny Smith did, and the scenes with the CMC were both funny and cute. Though my favorite scene was when Granny Smith was talking with Cheerilee. Seeing her just pat Cheerilee's head and being completely unaware of her actions was just really funny to me. I don't have much to say about the animation this time other than it's just really well done. Nothing really stood out at me like in some of the earlier episodes of the season, but there's still some pretty great scenes here. There was also a subplot that went along with this episode involving a fruit called Zap Apples, which I felt were out of place to begin with, but they soon grew on me, especially when it's revealed what significance they had in Granny Smith's story. And they also introduced another new creature with the Timberwolves. Yet another pun. Overall, I'm very glad to see a new episode after our long break, and this one was a delight to see. Next week is a Pinkie Pie episode, and I'm really excited to see that, so I may have more to say next time. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next review.
Diamond Tiara?
But Dad!
I'll go ahead and say this now. If it wasn't for Twilight, Pinkie would be my favorite pony. I just love how animated she is. No pun intended. In this episode, it begins with the Cakes having 2 newborn ponies. And I've heard people that they say that the Mare Duel baby design has grown on them. But actually, this design is different. The head is smaller and the eyes are more in proportion, so it doesn't look that weird to us. Anyway, it turns out that the two babies are a male Pegasus and a female unicorn, answering whether wings and horns are actually genetic traits.
Now, how in thunderation is one of them twins a Pegasus and the other one a unicorn?
Easy. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was a unicorn, and Cupcake's great-aunt's second cousin twice removed was a Pegasus. That makes sense, right?
I plan to go over how I think pony genetics work in a separate video. After we see the babies, a month passes and we see Pinkie playing with the babies at Sugar Coop Corner. And then Mr. and Mrs. Cake realize that they needed to fill a big order and deliver it. So they go around to the main six asking if anyone would babysit their kids. Every pony is busy except Pinkie, so they decide to let Pinkie babysit the kids. The rest of the episode focuses on Pinkie realizing just what she got herself into by offering to take care of them. There's quite a lot of scenes here that I loved and I want to go over, so let me get the moral out of the way before I talk about the humor and the other stuff. The moral of this episode was actually not about friendship at all. It was more about responsibility and learning the limit of your ability. I found it strange that to learn this moral, Pinkie had to get the kids to feel sorry for her. Now, all of the humor in this episode I thought was excellent. There were quite a lot of scenes that had me smiling constantly throughout the entire episode. One of my favorites was when the Cakes were going around asking the ponies to babysit. The different reactions from the characters were great, and Pinkie panning up like that was priceless. Pinkie's stand-up act also had me giggling at just how unimpressed the babies were, especially towards her piggy song, which turns out was actually a leftover recording from Season 1. Along with the humor, the animation in this episode was fantastic. Everything that Pinkie did was awesome, as well as the movements from Pound Cake and Pumpkin Cake. One final thing about this episode that I loved was just how incredibly cute it was. I wasn't prepared for the Cake twins being this cute.
Yum, yum, yum. No, 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 Pumpkin. Yum, yum. No, no. Yum, no.
Overall, I love this episode. It's probably one of my favorites of the new season. But that may be only because it's a Pinkie Pie episode, and it's the only one we have of her so far this season. The humor may have been a bit repetitive for some, but it was still enjoyable to watch and had me smiling and giggling the entire time. I think my only gripe about this episode was the pacing. For some reason, the episode felt short to me. That's all I have to say for this episode. I'm going to try to lay off the plot summary a bit more, so these reviews may be a bit shorter. I'm Paleo, and stay tuned for next week's review.
Would you be interested in becoming our go-to babysitter on a permanent basis?
Let me check my schedule. I should be available a week from... never! Pinkie Pie. I have some free time next Tuesday.
After viewing this episode and having the initial reaction of loving it, seeing some of the reactions from the people on the Equestrian forums and elsewhere, it seems very similar to what people have been saying about Lesson Zero, and how over-the-top both of the episodes are, and how people seem to think that the ponies are out of character for some reason, and breaking their element of harmony. But in all honesty, even though I was really nitpicky about the mysterious Mare Duel, I think people are being way too nitpicky about this episode. First of all, a lot of people said how they didn't like Applejack lying because she's the element of honesty. Well, she's lied before, and it's not like she actually did lie in this episode. She just didn't say anything about the rodeo. That's not lying, that's being secretive. People also said that Rainbow Dash was breaking her element of loyalty. Well, first of all, she's already broken that element twice in her past 2 episodes this season. That's why people haven't been that warm towards her in the past couple of months. But I actually warmed up to Dash a lot more in this episode, because she seemed genuinely concerned about Applejack. They definitely seem to have a stronger friendship than the rest of the cast due to their friendly rivalry. Then there's the moral of the episode that people said felt forced, but it didn't to me. I mean, I can understand where Applejack is coming from. Because when you're pressured to do well, and then end up not meeting those expectations, you really don't want to tell anyone. I just think that the people who thought the moral was forced just haven't been in that position. As far as it goes for the over-the-top stuff, that mainly stems from the humor in the action sequence we got at the end of the episode. The humor definitely felt like Lesson Zero, but of course I'm gonna love that because I love Lesson Zero. I feel like people are forgetting that this is first and foremost a cartoon. It's allowed to be over the top some of the time just for laughs as long as it makes sense in context with the story and doesn't make us raise any eyebrows. The writing was good enough in this episode where it didn't bother me if they went over the top. That's the main thing that bothered me in the mysterious Mare Duel. The writing was just so bad that I didn't enjoy any of the over-the-top stuff in that episode. But in this episode, I did enjoy it. Thank goodness it was Amy Keating-Rogers writing. I feel like the veteran writers are getting more confident in putting sillier and over-the-top stuff in the episodes, because now that they have the EI rating removed from the show, they're able to do as they please. I don't think they could have said get the heck out of Dodge if they still had that rating. So, enough of criticizing others' opinions. Now let me tell you what I thought of the episode itself. Well, first, the humor I thought was excellent in this episode. Especially Pinkie Pie. Every scene with her just had me giggling like crazy. Saberspark can vouch for me, as this was the first episode I've ever watched on the stream as it aired, and we were talking to each other on Skype. My favorite part was when Pinkie Pie flipped out after Applejack didn't show up at the breakfast.
Don't worry, Rainbow. She's gotta fess up after making a Pinkie promise. Good morning, Applejack. You ready for breakfast? No, Pony breaks a Pinkie promise! Applejack! You Pinkie promise! Applejack, come back here!
Giddy up, fellas. I gotta get the heck out of Dodge.
Not only was the humor excellent, but I think the animation really shined in this episode. All of the movements from every pony was expertly done, and the expressions they made had me smiling the whole time. Another thing I loved about this episode is that even though it was a focus on Applejack, it let all of the main six have a part, so we get to see how they all interact in a group, and see some character interactions that we haven't seen much of. Overall, I just really like this episode, and it's one that I'm glad they're putting out on the DVD coming out in February, because it really shows a lot of what makes this show great, as far as the humor goes, and it's just really fun to watch and makes me smile, which is one of the main reasons I fell in love with this show. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next review.
I'll get a real apology later. Merry Catchy Squad, Pinkie!
Oh yeah, there's another thing that happened in this episode. Derpy! I don't really have much to say about Derpy other than it was cute. I didn't mind it as much as other people did, but I didn't absolutely love it as much as others did either. It did catch me by surprise though. Saberspark and I were speechless at seeing her talk when watching the stream. Part of why I didn't mention her immediately was because it would overshadow everything else. Poor Applejack, she finally gets an episode and she's outshined by Derpy. Oh well, at least she gets an episode next time as well. I'll see you then. I have to say, M.A. Larson continues to be my favorite writer. No matter what plot he's writing, he always manages to pull it off. In this episode, the Apple family is challenged by these traveling sales ponies, the Flim Flam brothers, to a cider making contest. It seems that the Apples always run out of cider to sell to the town, but the Flim Flam brothers promise that they can make the cider much faster with the same quality. During the contest, the Flim Flam brothers get a bit too competitive, and decide to cut off their quality control on their machine. They win, but going for quantity instead of quality has its consequences.
Mine's got rocks in it.
I wouldn't pay 1 cent for this drip.
I'm sorry for returning to the same formula of going over the plot, but to be honest, unless there's some big outcry with the Last Roundup and the mysterious Mare Duel, I don't really know any other way to structure the beginning of my reviews. Anyway, the moral of the story was quality over quantity, and getting help from friends. And the fact that Applejack already knew that was a great way to end the episode, showing that sometimes the characters already realize what's right. They aren't morally bankrupt and need to be taught a lesson every episode. I think the humor in this episode was almost as good as last week's. The moments with Rainbow Dash were probably the best, excluding the final thought from Applejack in this episode, which was great. Not to mention, there were some really great faces from all the ponies in this episode too. Though it seems that no matter who the focus is on when all the main six are present, Pinkie Pie always makes the best expressions. As far as the Flim Flam brothers go, I was not expecting them to be like that at all, which was a great surprise. And an even better surprise to see them have a song. When I watched the episode for the first time, the song didn't really catch my interest. But the second time around, it really hit me, and I couldn't stop humming it.
Come on, Ponyville, you know what I'm talking about. We're saying you've got opportunity in this very community. He's fine with the world, there's Flim Flam brothers. Traveling sales ponies not Yeah!
Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I wasn't expecting the episode to involve the whole town, and it definitely had a very Simpsons vibe to it. And I'm not just saying that because a lot of people compared it to the monorail song in The Simpsons, but I mean how the whole town was involved. I think at this point that it's safe to say that the writers are pretty confident in writing for the show as if it was a regular cartoon. I think that before in Season 1, they had this stigma with the My Little Pony name and the EI rating holding them down. But now it seems that they're writing as if the cartoon was something like the Powerpuff Girls or Fosters, which makes a ton of sense considering a lot of the team worked on those shows. It's like as if halfway through the production of Season 2, they sort of realized this, and I think that the rest of this season is going to be funnier and more over the top. I still expect to see some deeper character development like with Sisterhooves Social at some point as well, but due to some recent comments I've seen floating around, not here on YouTube necessarily, I feel like I need to reiterate this again because it seems like people are still not getting it. This is a cartoon. I don't mean it's just a cartoon, deal with it, but I mean it's a cartoon, so it isn't afraid to get a little wacky once in a while. There are a surprising amount of people who didn't really watch cartoons until Friendship is Magic that don't realize this. We can have deep character development and still have over-the-top scenes. We can have our cake and eat it too. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Dear Princess Celestia, I wanted to share my thoughts with you. Ahem. I didn't learn anything.
Including this episode, so far we've had 3 focusing on Rainbow Dash this season. The first being good, the second being meh, and this one being, in my opinion, the better of all 3. In this, Rainbow Dash injures her wing, and she has to stay in the hospital for a couple of days. She's very worried about being bored the whole time, so Twilight suggests that she reads a book. Dash is reluctant to read a book, even though all of the others admit to reading every once in a while. Eventually Dash becomes overwhelmingly bored and decides to start reading the book that Twilight picked out for her. To her surprise, she starts to enjoy it. We see a lot of how Dash's pride gets in the way of her enjoying something that she would otherwise condemn. I've read around that a lot of people thought that it was silly that Rainbow Dash was hiding the fact that she was reading since all of her friends approved of the activity. They forget that Rainbow Dash pretty much set herself up for embarrassment, after going on about not reading. So I think it may be a bit reasonable for her to be a bit secretive. After all, she did insult one of her friends.
Aha! Twilight has a copy of the book. But I can't ask her after I called her an egghead and all.
She could have been afraid of an I told you so or something similar. But in the end, she learns that her friends will always like her, even though the activities she partakes in may not fit with her personality. That's a bit of a moral that wasn't really part of the episode, but I thought I would mention it. The actual moral was about not knocking something until you actually try it. Which, to us fans, we can probably relate to a lot, since a lot of us never would have thought of watching a My Little Pony cartoon deliberately. The humor in this episode was alright, though I think the barking pony near the end of the episode really stole a lot of the spotlight. When I was watching, I was thinking, I hear a dog, but where's the... oh.
Hey, get back to the hospital!
Isn't it strange how a mentally insane pony can appear and no one gets riled up over it like with Derpy? I guess insanity is funnier than derpiness. Everything about Rainbow Dash's expressions had me smiling during this episode. She just had so many great faces. Though another thing I noticed about this episode is how there were a couple of instances where the voiceover didn't match the animation. There was one instance with Daring Do, and another with Applejack.
Yeah, just go ahead and eat up.
There may have been quite a few other errors in this episode, but I'm sure Whitehawk will point them out at a later date. Overall, this episode was good, and although it's no Sonic Rainboom, it's still one of the better Rainbow Dash episodes so far, with a lot of action, though through her imagination. And we got to see some of Dash's positive traits, which is something I think she really needed for her character in this season. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
Well, this is strange. Even though this episode was leaked early, I haven't really had time to sit down with the episode long enough for me to actually write a review for it, so the quality of this one may be less than usual. Anyway, this is the third episode we've had this season where the focus is on a holiday that mirrors the real world. Hearts and Hooves Day is like Valentine's Day, and one thing I noticed about a lot of people's position on the holiday is either they love it or they hate it. Mostly a lot of people hate it. Me, I'm pretty indifferent towards it. I thought it was nice to see them have a similar holiday in the show, and I like how we got to see a lot of the background ponies and couples interacting in different ways. There was even a scene in the beginning where Twist was giving a card to one of the school ponies, and another pony saw it and seemed heartbroken. Aw, poor thing. Moving on. The plot of the episode focuses on CMC trying to get Cheerilee and Big Mac together, since Cheerilee doesn't have a very special sun pony. And we actually get a new song out of it where they're trying to find the right choice for Cheerilee. It's about the same length as Becoming Popular from Sweet and Elite, though not quite as catchy. I think the main thing that stuck out in this song for me was the guitar. It was just really great.
He's much too flashy. He might do if he weren't so splashy. Too short, too tall, too clean, too smelly. Too strangely obsessed with tubs of jelly.
So the CMC tried to get the two together for Hearts and Hooves Day, and ultimately resort to using a love potion, which turns out to be a love poison after reading the book that Twilight gave them. I love how the show actually explains how these holidays come about instead of just making them a carbon copy of holidays from the real world. The CMC eventually fixed the mess they made, and they learned that they shouldn't meddle with other ponies' relationships, which is kind of a strange moral for the kind of show that Friendship is Magic is. But I guess it's kind of hard to think of a moral for the holiday. You think of another moral for Hearts and Hooves Day. I sure can't. The humor in this episode isn't quite as good as I was expecting it to be, but maybe that's because I saw Megan McCarthy's name in the beginning sequence, and I was pumped to laugh since she's written some of the more hilarious episodes. I think this may be her weakest one so far, but that's not saying much because there were still quite a few things in this episode that made me giggle. Like the jelly-obsessed pony, Big Mac pulling Berry Punch's house, and Twist pinning the heart on Cheer Lee. That must have hurt. Why is she always so oblivious? As far as the animation goes, I think there was a lot here that impressed me. There were some great expressions by the CMC, though there was also that weird worm thing that Applebloom and Scootaloo were doing. We got to see a lot more of Cheer Lee and Big Mac in different poses. Not to mention a lot more dialogue from those two, even though most of what Big Mac said was due to the love poison.
You're my cutie patootie lovey-dovey honey bunny.
You're my hearty, smarty, smoochy, woochy, baby, wavy.
Big Mac! Hey! Hello! What's going on? Miss Cheerilee, are you alright?
I have a special some pony. A kissy-wissy, snuggy-wuggy sugar bear.
Overall, I enjoyed this episode. I'm glad we got to see another episode involving the CMC that doesn't have to do with cutie marks. Because really the only episode we've had this season about cutie marks was Cutie Pox. All the others, Sisterhooves Social, Family Appreciation Day, and this episode, there wasn't even a mention of it. So to all of the people complaining about the CMC doing nothing but looking for their cutie marks in their episodes, don't really have much of an argument this season. Next weekend is another Pinkie Pie episode, so once again I'm very excited. But unfortunately I won't be here since I'll be on my first camping trip for biology this semester, so I won't be able to see it until I get back. The next review may be late. Until then, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Girls, can you explain why I look like I'm getting married at the bottom of a pit?
Well, there's no denying it now. Pinkie Pie is the best pony. She just is. Everything I love about her was expressed in this episode. Twilight's still my favorite, but there is a distinction between one's favorite and one's best. There's a lot that I loved about this episode, so let's get straight to it. This episode starts us off with Pinkie getting dressed in some workout outfit and trying to get the baby cakes to laugh. And that's something that I really loved about this episode besides everything about Pinkie. It actually acknowledges a few things like the fact that Pinkie is still babysitting the Cake Twins every so often, and that Rainbow is still reading Daring Do. Hooray for continuity nods! After the opening with the cakes, we see Pinkie strolling around town and greeting everyone. Not just every pony, but every one. And that's another thing that I'm glad they acknowledged. Not all the residents of Ponyville are ponies. So it was nice to see them throw in a couple of non-pony characters. And then, there's the song. I love this song. As some of you may know, I listened to the song when it was leaked, and I fell in love with it immediately. It was just so well done and full of so much emotion that it literally made me tear up a couple of times. And that was only when I listened to it without the animation to go along with it. Now having the episode with the animation made me tear up again.
It's true, some days are dark and lonely, and maybe you feel sad, but Pinkie will be there to show you that it isn't that bad. There's one thing that makes me happy and makes my whole life worthwhile, and that's when I talk to my friends and get them to smile. I really am so happy. Your smile fills me with glee. I give a smile, I get a smile, and that's so special to me.
Having her trot along with the song in the beginning was so incredibly cute. And seeing her just take her time to make everyone happy was something that I think hit a lot of us deeply. It pretty much explains just how powerful these characters can be. I was wondering how the song would fit in this episode previously since I was looking a bit too deeply into the lyrics beforehand. But after it showed up before the actual plot of the episode did, I hit my forehead and said, of course. The actual plot is about Pinkie trying to befriend a donkey named Cranky who's moving to Ponyville. and throughout the episode, Pinkie continually tries to befriend him and tries getting him to smile using different techniques. One sequence that happens after she fails for the first time is a felt animation that was done by Jason Thiesen's wife, and it was a real treat to see, especially after Pinkie broke the fourth wall to take the felt checkmark.
I don't get it. How can some pony not become instant best friends with me? Was it something I said? Was it something I sang? This is no time for the blame game, Pinkie. There's some pony new in town, and you need to win him over. Try everything you can to make Cranky smile and be your friend. Check!
After Pinkie sort of traumatizes Cranky by accidentally destroying his possessions, Pinkie tries apologizing and eventually connects that a donkey seen earlier in the episode who was actually a special friend that Cranky was looking for. The moral of the episode was kind of vague, really, for an episode written by Amy Keating Rogers. And it seems to have some people divided, because some are interpreting it that it's okay to force your friendship on other people that don't want to be your friend or something like that. Despite that, though, the moral didn't really bother me and was the last thing I thought of when this episode was over. It was just the overall humor, animation, and the incredible song that made me love this episode. It's probably going to end up as my favorite of Season 2. Pinkie's character was just so incredibly fun, and I think it's her best showing in any episode so far. It just shows how silly she can be while at the same time just how caring she is, and just wants others to be happy. This episode was the prime example of just why I love this show so much, because the characters can produce such a strong emotional response from us, and if the Smile song didn't do that for you, then I don't know what else could. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Smile, smile, smile from these happy friends of mine. Come on, every pony, smile, smile, smile. Fill my heart up with sunshine, sunshine. All I really need's a smile, smile, smile from these happy friends of mine. Yes, everything for me is a smile as wide as a smile to make me happy as can be. Smile, smile.
Out of all of the episodes that Meriwether Williams has written, I think that this episode has been the best out of the three, though there are still quite a few criticisms from the fans. It seems that Meriwether's writing style is a bit different in that everything that happens in the episode that seems out of place is just put there for plot convenience. The disasters in Mare Duel, the fact that the ancestors of the 3 pony tribes were extensions of the main 6, and here we see that every pony is being a jerk to Fluttershy in the market. It's as if every time she's writing an episode, it seems like she's still trying to get used to the characters, and that's what makes it feel so much different than the other writers. With that said, I think she actually came closer to representing the characters' personalities in this episode much more than she did in Mare Duel. I have seen quite a few complaints about how Fluttershy was acting out of character, but in all honesty, I don't think she was. It's like what Greg from Flim Flam Philosophy said in the interview we had in Brony Breakdown, which you should all go check out if you haven't yet. Fluttershy is the type of character that is a pushover that at first you pity, but if she doesn't exhibit some sort of ability to stand up for herself, then she won't become quite as likable and you won't feel sorry for her anymore when something bad happens to her. While this episode may have been a bit much, I don't think it's quite as comparable to something like her outburst at the gala. And even then, I don't really think this characterization of her having 2 sides is all that bad. There are some people who don't like it, but to me personally, I don't mind. There was actually a video someone sent me a few weeks ago analyzing Fluttershy's character and how everything led up to her having an outburst at the gala. It's an hour-long video, but if you want to hear a really detailed analysis of her character, then I'd suggest watching it. The moral of this episode is similar to the one presented in Dragonshy, though with Fluttershy realizing what she's doing instead of her being pushed to that point. It seems that she's much calmer in this instance and knows how to control her assertiveness towards Iron Will, compared to her outburst at the dragon or the stare down of the cockatrice and Stairmaster, where she was much more intimidating. I think it was important to have an episode like this so we can know that Fluttershy can now control herself. I think the humor in this was the best out of Meriwether's episodes, especially the moments with Iron Will, mainly with his second appearance.
Iron Will's my name, training ponies is my game.
We're not even sure Fluttershy is home right now. She might be off frolicking with some woodland creatures. Why don't you give us some time to track her down for you?
Well, Iron Will does have some grocery shopping to do. Iron Will come back this afternoon. Your payment is overdue, Fluttershy. You're nothing but a doormat. An iron will turn you into a lean, mean, assertive machine. Now, pay Iron Will what you owe Iron Will.
I was really pleased to see him as a Minotaur. I love that they're adding a bit more of Greek mythology into the show. And then there were a few moments in the market scene, like the one instance where Pinkie Pie actually pulls a Bugs Bunny on one of the food stands.
Argue about it. What do you think you're doing?
Minding my own business. Maybe you should try it.
2 bits for tomatoes is outrageous. 1 bit is the right price.
I say it's 2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
1 bit.
I insist it's 2 bits or nothing.
1 bit, and that's my final offer.
Have it your way. 1 bit it is.
There were also quite a lot of impressive movements and expressions by the characters in this episode. And we even had a really cool depth effect with Fluttershy's face in the latter part of the episode. I'm hoping to see more effects like that sometime later in the season. Overall, like I said, I think this has been Merryweather's best episode. It still doesn't compare to the writing of the other writers on the show, but I think the problem is the fact that her style and experience differs so greatly that it feels like a different cartoon when she's writing. The same can probably be said of Dave Polsky's episodes from last season. If Merryweather does continue writing on Friendship is Magic, I think she'll continue to get better. And even though her episodes may feel a little different, they're still enjoyable. That's all I have to say for my thoughts on this episode, but there's a couple of things I want to say in this video before I close out. First of all, if you haven't seen the collaboration between Saberspark and I called Brony Breakdown, check it out now. We talk about different happenings with the show and the fandom, and then we have an interview with a Brony of the community. Though both parts of the show are recorded at separate times, and the show definitely isn't uploaded the same day that we record. Anyway, so far we've had an interview with the guys from Femfine Philosophy talking about the Mentally Advanced series and Rainbow Dash Presents. And we've also had an interview with Dusty Cat. The next episode will probably be out next week, and that will have an interview with General Mumble. So please, go check out Brony Breakdown. Second thing, I have a Facebook page now. I wanted to have one mainly so I could post about pony stuff without having to worry about other people seeing it, and just because I just wanted a fresh start on Facebook. And I also have a Tumblr, but I think a lot of people already know that since I started posting there a long time before I started making videos about ponies regularly. I would say to check out my Twitter as well, but I don't post there that often. And everything I post on Tumblr is just forwarded to that. Third thing, pony discussions. I'm working on the next video as soon as I'm done uploading this. Don't worry, it'll be up this week hopefully. And final thing, I'll be posting some stuff on eBay next week so I can start saving up money for BronyCon. Right now I just want to get enough to where I can RSVP. I'm still not sure if I'm able to go due to that offer in Montana, which I'll talk about later this week. But if I can go while I'm out there, I'd rather be prepared now rather than not go at all when I could have. And that's it for now. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. See you next week.
I'm not satisfied.
What do you mean you're not satisfied? Every pony has always been satisfied!
Well, I guess I'm the first then. But since I'm not satisfied, I refuse to pay. It's as simple as that. Did you see that? I was so assertive.
It's been a long time since we've had an episode focused on Twilight, and while this episode wasn't really what I was expecting, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. The reason I say that it wasn't what I was expecting was because, well, I don't know really. I guess I felt like the episode was really predictable as far as the time loop goes, since I've seen it done multiple times in other TV shows. I guess I was just expecting more from M.A. Larson. Though with that said, the way the episode does the time loop is expertly done, and the events that lead up to Twilight finally appearing as future Twilight were fun and amusing. There's something I want to speculate on with this episode, so let me get my usual points out of the way so I can go over it. The moral of the episode was very subtle this time, and we didn't have a letter to Princess Celestia, though we finally see her again after she's been absent in every episode since Sweet and Elite. It was about how you shouldn't worry too much about the future and just face one thing at a time. I think it's pretty important for anyone who may be too caught up in scheduling, or someone who's worried about where they'll be in the future. Sometimes it's just best to face things as they come. The humor in this episode was pretty good. There wasn't anything that made me laugh out loud, but the episode had me smiling the whole time. I was glad to see some more interaction between Twilight and Pinkie since they're my top 2 favorites, and I like the contrast between them.
Pinkie, I'm glad you're here. Can you help me recalibrate the apertures on the 9 1/4 catadioptric telescopes?
Sure!
So I was thinking, after I came to see Madame Pinkie and the flower pot landed on my head, see the bandage, just like the bandage from the future?
Nice!
I had an epiphany after that flower pot. Doing things didn't work. Not doing things didn't work. And I couldn't predict the future either, so I only had one other choice. Monitor everything.
Makes sense to me.
Pinkie, did you finish recalibrating the apertures on the 9 1/4 catadioptric telescopes?
I have no idea.
There was also another reference to the Pinkie sense, but I feel like M.A. Larson sort of gets why the Pinkie sense is what it is, and I've sort of grown to like it a bit more than I did previously.
Pinkie, I need your Pinkie sense to tell me what the impending disaster is that future Twilight was trying to warn me about.
Oh, my fortune-telling has nothing to do with my Pinkie sense, silly. It's only good for vague and immediate events. Like that, see? Where did that even come from?
The animation in this episode was some of the best I've seen in recent episodes, and there were a lot of expressions and movements from Twilight, Pinkie, and Spike that I really enjoyed. Seeing them sneak around the Canterlot archives was really fun, and it's become one of my favorite scenes in the series.
I don't understand. It's supposed to be right here. How are we supposed to find it now?
Maybe we should ask some pony in the Star Swirl the Bearded Wing.
Huh, how'd I miss that? Look at all those priceless magic scrolls. There are more than I ever imagined.
Twilight, the card!
What do we do? What do we do?
Well, hey, Twilight. Haven't seen you in a while. Let me open that for you.
Thanks.
Overall, I think this was a pretty good episode, and it's reassurance that M.A. Larson is one of the best writers on the show. I was expecting him to write it since I thought that time travel would probably be his forte and he would be able to write it well. Not only that, but we got a third mention of Star Swirl the Bearded, and the appearance of a Cerberus and the mention of a place called Tartaros in Equestria. The show continues referencing Greek mythology, but it seems like the mention of the place where evil creatures are being held is a bit too big to only mention once. I think Spike was saying what all the fans wanted to say after the Cerberus scene.
Ugh. I wish Twilight would go on epic adventures more often.
I'm predicting that this isn't going to be the last we hear of that place, and I think we may see it in the opening of Season 3. Though in the meantime, we have 6 episodes left in the season, so it's possible that it might be referenced again. Wow, that's 20 episode reviews. I can't believe I was actually able to do this regularly. I never keep such a steady schedule on anything. Like, ever. Well, I hope you've enjoyed what I've done so far. Only 6 more left in the season. Let's hope they're all great. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Any pony else want to panic with me? No?
Wow, another episode from Merryweather. I take back what I said in my last review of one of her episodes. This episode is the best out of everything she's done so far. This felt a lot like a Megan McCarthy episode. Well, that is, except for how Rarity was acting. I feel she was the one that was the most, flanderized in this episode.
I'm telling you, we'll never pass for a real dragon. Oh, pish posh. This costume is fabulous. One of my finer creations.
This is another Spike episode focused on developing his character, and I actually think they did a pretty good job with Spike realizing exactly who he is. As he said in the episode, who you are is not the same as what you are. He isn't really aggressive like the other dragons, and is a bit more compassionate like the ponies in the show. I think that was an excellent moral for this episode to present, and we can actually draw some parallels between the dragons and ponies, and girls and boys around elementary school age. Children that age can really learn something from this episode, and become aware of how their peers act. Just because you're a boy, or dragon in this case, doesn't mean you have to act like that stereotype. It's better to be who you are on the inside. While the moral was something that I think was overlooked in this episode, there were quite a lot of other things that were great about it. We had some really excellent background music this time around, with the flight of the dragons and the contest that Spike was being put through.
King of the Horde!
This is my chance.
Not so fast!
King of the
And I was glad to see a lot of creativity in the designs of the teenage dragons and a few of the bigger ones. A lot of people, including me, were reminded of how to train your dragon by their designs. The animation in this episode was top-notch. We got to see a lot of interesting scenes involving fire, something that's very hard to animate right. And my favorite scene that showed it off was the chase with the phoenixes. It was really nice to see them again, and seeing how they fly was really badass. The overall humor in this episode had me giggling quite a bit, but it seems like any time the ponies talked, it didn't have that much humor. Spike and the other dragons definitely stole the show in this episode. Dragon Quest has definitely been Meriwether's best episode by far. We've had 4 episodes from her, so it's unlikely that we'll get another one written by her this season. If anything, I'll go with the guess that someone mentioned on the Equestria forums that each of the 6 writers on the show will get 4 episodes, excluding the Return of Harmony episodes. I guess Dave Polsky and Chris Savino aren't on the team anymore. Oh well. Anyway, I'm quite excited for next week's episode after seeing the preview clips. So stay tuned for the next review. I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Oh, isn't he adorable when he waddles off in anger?
Waddle?
Man, I knew this season was going to be good at the tail end, but this episode was just so spectacular, it really blew me away. This is the only other Fluttershy-focused episode we're getting this season, and while Putting Your Hoof Down was alright, this episode is definitely the better of the two. We got to see a flashback with Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash when they were younger, and that's something that I've been waiting to see for a while, so that was special. I think that Fluttershy's physical display of her emotions and Andrea Libben's voice acting really made this episode for me. The scene with her turning back to Rainbow Dash and crying was just really well done and really tugged at my heartstrings.
Fluttershy, wait! So some punks poked a little fun at you when you got stage fright. Big deal! You aren't gonna go quit just because of that, are you?
Yes! But I need you! I'm sorry, Rainbow Dash. I just don't have the courage right now.
The moral of this episode was about no matter how insignificant you think you may be, your contribution always counts. You can make a difference no matter how small your change is. It's a nice moral, but I don't feel it really added or took away anything from the episode. It was sort of just there. The humor in this episode was pretty great. The Roid Rage pony contained some subtle adult humor, there was the Rocky montage with Fluttershy, and there were some callbacks to previous episodes like the mule and Fluttershy being a tree. It could also be argued that the squirrel talking to Twilight was a callback to the Powerpuff Girls since Tara Strong voiced Bubbles. The animation in this episode was fantastic. I loved every bit of it. It was already really nice seeing the Pegasi get a lot of screen time showing off what they can do, but then the tornado with the water just boosted this episode as being one of my favorites of the season as far as animation goes. Oh, and there's one final thing about this episode that impressed me a lot, and that would be the background music. William Anderson has always been fantastic with his work, but I felt like he was giving it his all with this one. There are just so many tracks in this episode that were amazing. Though one of my favorites in the episode was when Rainbow Dash was showing off her wing power. Those drums just sounded so awesome. Overall, this was just a really awesome episode. And that's all I really have to say. I'm going to go ahead and say that this has probably been the best Fluttershy-focused episode we've had so far. That's just how much I like it. So, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. This episode has been M.A. Larson's most hilarious episode yet. I usually associate him with action, lore, and intriguing plot lines, but this episode just had me giggling all the way through. I'll talk about the humor first, since that's what really shined in this. There were a ton of jokes and visual gags right in the beginning, even one poking fun at how the ponies are named.
The rest of you, I want hard-hitting news and interesting think pieces. No more namby-pamby stories like last year's editor.
But namby-pamby was a great editor.
All of the articles about the individual ponies were pretty hilarious as well, even including some callbacks to previous episodes like the mention of Trixie and showing Big Mac with the Smarty Pants doll. A few other moments in this episode that I found great were Sweetie Belle smacking the magic out of Rarity's horn, and Big Mac and Applejack switching roles. This was the first episode that I watched with a group of people in person for the first time, and the audience erupted when that happened. There was also Rarity being a drama queen after finding out about Sweetie Belle writing in the paper. The way they did the transitions in this episode was excellent, and Rarity confronting her sister was brilliant.
Why, she's the most innocent, most lovely, most evil pony in Equestria! How could my own sister steal my private diary? How could my own sister be Gabby Goss?
How'd you find out?
The gilded pages of your betrayal.
Oh, yeah.
Other than the humor, the animation in this episode was pretty fantastic, especially the expressions from the CMC and the other school ponies, specifically Diamond Tiara. I like how they're continuing to use her as a permanent antagonist to the CMC. I mean, she friggin' blackmailed him.
But the gossip we've been printing is hurting every pony's feelings.
Feelings? I don't care about feelings. Gabby Gums is my bread and butter, and I'm not gonna let you goody two-horseshoes take that away from me.
We're sorry, Diamond Tiara, but we've made our decision.
Yeah, you can't force us to keep gossiping.
When you see these, you may not want to quit after all. I told Featherweight to document everything. And that's exactly what he did.
Give me those!
Sorry, girls. Property of the full free press. And if Gabby Gums really does go into retirement, I'll need something to fill that empty column space. Now get out there and bring me more Gabby Gums!
Really, the only thing I found odd about this episode is how mean the main six were to the CMC after finding out about them. Especially Twilight. That just rubbed me the wrong way for some reason. The moral was a decent one. It's not nice to spread lies about other ponies, which can cause some pretty heavy consequences. So, like all great episodes, it's hard to comment on it that much. I wasn't really browsing the forums this past weekend, so I don't know what else people were saying, so I can't really weigh in my thoughts. So, sorry for the brevity once again, but I'm working on something else at the moment that will be sure to please a lot of people. Hopefully it'll be up by the end of next week at the latest. Hopefully earlier. Until then, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. After rewatching this episode, I kind of like it more than when I initially watched it. At first I felt a little underwhelmed for an episode written by Amy Keating Rogers, but the more I look into it, the episode was still a pretty good one. It was chock full of references with the sequences that Pinkie imagined for the bakers destroying the cake, and Mulia Mild as a reference to Julia Child was pretty hilarious. The bakers were all pretty interesting, and it was nice to see Pony Joe return, now apparently known as Donut Joe. And it was nice to see a Griffon appear after they've been absent for so long. I really like the design of Gustav as well. It looks a bit like it's based off a pelican or a seagull from the shape of his beak and his colors. I've been hearing a lot of people say that they don't like how the moral was just added on at the end of the episode, but I don't think it was. Throughout the episode, Pinkie was jumping to conclusions and Twilight was trying to teach Pinkie how to search for evidence, so really the moral was executed well, just I guess a lot of people thought it felt forced. Maybe it's because Celestia was just ignoring Pinkie at the end. Oh, and speaking of Twilight and Pinkie, I really love episodes where we see them interact with each other. Seeing that contrast between their personalities always makes me smile.
This mystery gets more mysterious every minute!
Well, you have to stop the wild accusations and get to the truth. Every pony go back to your cars while we do a little investigating. Okay, Pinkie, in order to really solve this mystery, we're going to have to find clues. Now, you were here at the scene of the crime all night.
You're not accusing me, are you?
No. But maybe you saw something that will help us.
I saw a silhouette in the moonlight.
Good. Let's retrace your steps.
Pinkie was going a bit over the top in this episode, but nothing really that unusual for her. I did feel like she was getting annoyed at Twilight being a little condescending towards her, like how she felt in Baby Cakes. But I think that's a good thing, though, because it makes for some interesting chemistry between them. I wouldn't mind an episode exploring that aspect of Twilight and Pinkie's friendship. Overall, this episode was fairly enjoyable, but it wasn't Amy Keating Rogers' best as far as humor goes. I think we all know which one she wrote that has that title. So that does it for all of the normal episodes this season. The finale will be a couple of weeks from now with the two parts playing on the same day, and I'm really looking forward to it, as I'm sure all of you are. For the next review, though, I'll be doing a collaboration with my friend GoldenFox here on YouTube. He's one of the other reviewers I crossed paths with when I first started doing this, and he asked me about doing a collab for the finale, and I thought it was an excellent idea. I figure the finale deserves something a bit better than one of my rinky-dink reviews. So until then, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching.
Has any pony else noticed that Rarity is wearing her hair rather differently today?
What? Is it a crime to change one's style now and again? why I think it's a crime not to.
Really?
Fine, I'm guilty! I wear false eyelashes! Oh, and I took a bite of the cake.
It's hard to believe that Season 2 has already ended. It felt like yesterday when it first started. But whenever something comes to an end, there should be a good way to end it. Anticipating to the Season 2 finale of Friendship is Magic was both exciting but underwhelming to me simultaneously. From what I expected, it was about a wedding that had an alicorn who I barely knew over the past several months. That and Twilight had a brother. At the same time, the ads made it look silly, which didn't help at all either. What I didn't expect was what the quality of this finale was under-advertised as. I'm not kidding. Let me put it this way. When I anticipate to something, I hope for the better. But when something this epic, something exuberant, or something incredibly big comes when you least expect it, it's a real treat and a compliment for both the viewers and producers alike. With little expectations, this finale surprisingly blew me away.
You took the words straight out of my mouth. Not only was this finale spectacular, but it included one of the best narratives out of the series so far. Unlike the Return of Harmony storyline, I feel like A Canterlot Wedding did a much better job as far as pacing goes. It actually felt like I was watching a movie with this finale.
Twilight and her friends are invited to a big wedding being held for Twilight's brother Shining Armor, in which they must improvise ordered by Celestia. Upon hearing so, Twilight's upset that she wasn't notified by him in advance, but when arriving at Canterlot, it turns out he's been kept so busy having the entire city shielded for threatening reasons.
It still isn't as bad as airport security.
When discussing more with Shining Armor, Twilight's told that he'll be marrying Princess Cadence, who once happily full-sitted her when she was very young. Though Twilight was excited to meet her at first, Cadence doesn't appear the same way she's remembered. Throughout Part 1, Cadence grudges behind the backs of Twilight's friends as she witnesses it all until discovering the worst. During rehearsal, Twilight gets scolded for calling Cadence evil for all the things she's done.
She even gets talked down to by Princess Celestia herself. The face that Twilight makes after she walks by made my heart drop, especially with that organ playing in the background.
And when you at least expect it, Cadence traps Twilight in a crystal cavern, held as prison as she's later revealed as an imposter. Here we see the scheme of Part 2. The imposter is disguised by a leader of a race called Changelings, who disguise themselves to feed upon love, and they plan to take over Canterlot to gain more power. The show never mentions her name, but she's revealed as Queen Chrysalis. What makes this so unexpected is that I presumed it would be an episode where Twilight and her friends would attend, but stir up a set of clones to help with their duties, but only lead to disaster and goofy chaos like The Best Night Ever, similarly like The Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia. But unlike what I was expecting, it turns out to be an epic story like a Disney movie from the age of Renaissance. Things get dramatic, suspenseful, it still keeps the charm of the show's humor, and not to mention, very, very action-packed.
No kidding. The fight scenes during the second half are very reminiscent of the fight scenes from the Powerpuff Girls, which makes a lot of sense. I feel like they were trying to pay tribute to that series during that scene.
Even from someone like me who's not too fond of the Powerpuff Girls, I think it's still saying a lot when it comes to the brawling sequence and outsmarting each of the pony's replicas. Also, party cannon for the win.
By the way, I don't think I was the only one who was excited when we saw Princess Celestia actually stand up to the villain in this episode. Her dialogue and the way she locked horns with Queen Chrysalis was, in my opinion, one of the most epic scenes produced by the show.
Within these new characters added to the finale, it's as good as it can get. It's strange at first because we know little of them, but they each fit their roles as importantly to the story overall, while keeping those from the show in need, whether it was little screen time or not.
To be completely honest, I was really worried about how they were going to introduce Shining Armor, as a lot of people were. Introducing a character that we've never heard of throughout the entire season during the finale, and he's related to one of the main 6? I don't know how they pulled it off so smoothly, but it seems like they did. Maybe the song helped.
Getting back to Queen Chrysalis, this is one of the most unexpected twisted beans I have ever seen in cartoons. Unlike Nightmare Moon in Discord, this bitch is nasty. She's partly portrayed as a dictator, but at the same time a bit of a cannibal by emotions. She resembles both Ursula from The Little Mermaid and the Witch from Oz. This is a villain who enjoys being a villain, and with those punctured hooves, dark hair, and evil green eyes, she and her minions look incredibly badass. The real Princess Cadance makes her reveal in the second half, but even with that little screen time she's given, what she provides makes us care for her. Her plans for her wedding, but to only be trapped in a crystal cave, can be explanatory alone. Not to mention, Britt McKillop did a fantastic job on the voice work. This finale features a few songs, and each of them are very well written. Big Best Friend Forever was cute. It shows some backstory on Twilight's brother and her distant connections with him, and I think this was a perfect route to go since we never knew Twilight's brother to begin with. Love is in Bloom, played at the end of the episode, was enjoyable, and even though it doesn't achieve much, it's still an impact by the joyful atmosphere and fun as it's shown.
I feel like I'm in the minority here, but I absolutely loved Love is in Bloom. Out of all the songs, I feel like that one really topped off the finale and really made it feel like the ending of a movie. I really loved the piano intro and the chorus of the song.
Oh, I loved how all the ponies were dancing and seeing photos of them taken. It really makes you feel like you're there. Not to mention we got to see Vinyl Scratch again. But of course, one of the most favored, including myself, is This Day area. Here we see Britt McKillop do an amazing job with her singing voice as she tones from good to evil as we're switched between her character and Chrysalis, making it sound very evil.
This day is going to be perfect, the kind of day of which I dreamed since I was small. Every pony will gather round, see I look lovely in my gown. What they don't know is that I have fooled them all. This day was going to be perfect, the kind of day of which I dreamed since I was small. But instead of having cake with all my friends to celebrate my wedding bells, they may not ring for me at all. I could care less about the dress, I won't partake in any cake. Vows, well I'll be lying when I say that through any kind of weather I'll want us to be together. The truth is I don't care for him at all. No, I do not love the groom. In my heart there is no room, but I still want him to be all mine.
Being the first villain song we've received from the show, unless you count the Flim Flam Brothers, This Day aria has already inspired many great remixes within the community, including renditions that sound like boss themes for video games. If this is the way the community reacts to a villain song, then I can't wait to see if we get one in Season 3.
Now, if there's any gripe that I have, Princess Luna was in this episode, but she was played through such a small role that it felt like she was just placed there for the sake of fan service. She wasn't active throughout the second half, and on top of that, when she made her return, she asked if she missed anything. I know that she's supposed to be the princess of the night, and she would probably be asleep throughout the day, but even of that, she would have heard the cries for help.
I bet she was off playing games on Steam.
If she was more active, such as trying to help Celestia or the main 6 or just something, then it would have been interesting instead of just leaving her out. But on the bright side, the show's at least aware that she's still there. Hopefully we'll get to see her more in the future. In the end, I felt very satisfied. It was a great way to end Season 2 with a bang. It was one hell of a finale. Hopefully Season 3 will be just as good and perhaps include more character interactions as well as the new ones. Just my theory though. I don't expect too much, but since there's still a lot of potential to the quality of the show, who knows? Season 2 overall was excellent, and I thought it was better than Season 1.
I concur. Even though Season 1 brought us an unexpectedly excellent show, Season 2 showed us just how good it can be even with high expectations. The amount of effort put into the writing, the animation, and the songs all show just how dedicated the staff is to making something fun and entertaining. The fact that they even acknowledge us and actually put in bits of fan service is something we should all be very grateful for. This finale was so good, it felt like a love letter from the staff to us viewers. Season 2 may be over, but Season 3 is just over the horizon. and I look forward to continuing being a part of this community and sharing my thoughts on the show. Until next time, I'm Paleo,
And this is GoldenFox.
and thank you for watching.
Take
So, Season 3 is finally here. With all of the conventions and fan creations over the summer and fall to hold us over, nothing is quite as refreshing as new episodes of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. The wait has been a long one, but was it worth it? Let's find out in my very first Season 3 episode review. Season 3 starts off with one of the royal guards telling Celestia that it, beating the Crystal Empire, has returned. The episode spares no time in getting straight to the point, and that's something that I really admired. Not to mention that they gave Luna some screen time and dialogue, talking about Twilight and if she's ready, making the mood of this episode a little more serious than the previous two-parters. To briefly explain the story, the Crystal Empire has returned, and it's up to Twilight and her friends to get the hopes of the Crystal Ponies back up by having a fair so the Crystal Heart
is to lift the spirits of the crystal ponies so the light within them can power the crystal heart so that the empire can be protected.
Yeah, what she said. To be honest, the Crystal Fair seemed a bit sim game-ish. The entire time watching, I thought I was playing Roller Coaster Tycoon or something, trying to keep my park guests happy. Compared to the other two season openers, I felt like the story of this one was the weakest out of the three. There's an ancient evil, an ancient empire, it must be protected, blah blah blah. I know I may seem a bit apathetic about the whole thing, but I really didn't have a reason to care about the Crystal Empire other than the fact that they were ponies. Even the villain didn't really seem too threatening. He felt like a throwaway character. It really felt like it was written as though it was meant to sell something. But really, that's the only major weak point about this two-parter that I can pinpoint. Everything else I felt did a good job in keeping me entertained. The songs were a delight as always, and it was nice to hear a couple of them in the first two episodes of the season. If you want to know which song I liked better, it would probably be the Crystal Fair song, mainly because of the percussion in it. The lyrics may be a bit silly, but it's very catchy.
It says that they like jousting.
They flew a flag of many hues, made sweet to crystal fairies.
They had a petting zoo with tiny ewes.
Oh, we have to get this right. Yes, we have to make them see. We can save the crystal ponies with their history.
The overall humor of the two-parter was pretty good, though I think Rarity and Pinkie Pie stole the show for the most part. The way Rarity reacts to everything made out of crystals is very amusing, and how Rainbow Dash and Applejack bump Hooves out of mocking her is a nice touch. And Pinkie's expressions and actions throughout the episodes were something very familiar that I think we all wanted to see return. The animation has only gotten better, and it seems much smoother than it was before. There are some great scenes and effects in these episodes that we haven't seen much of in the other two seasons. I think the best part of these episodes, though, was the moral and the focus on Twilight. Though I felt they were sort of exaggerating Twilight's character similar to how they did in Lesson 0. Even though I loved that episode. But I didn't think that kind of exaggeration worked here. When she came into the room with Princess Celestia and was panicking about not knowing about the Crystal Empire, I felt like it was sort of unneeded. In fact, the whole having Twilight take a test felt a bit unneeded. I mean, when Celestia told Twilight about Discord, it wasn't a test. I think they just needed an excuse to tell the self-sacrifice moral, which in all honesty I think was a really good moral to tell, but the execution was a bit, weird? I mean, you could make the argument that Twilight wanted the glory of saving the day, but really, all she wanted was to pass Celestia's test, which is, well, kinda dumb. An entire empire is about to fall, and Twilight can't do anything, and what she worries about is passing Celestia's test. Even Spike is wrapped up in believing that she'll fail when something so serious is going on. Though I have to say that when Twilight stares through Sombra's door and sees her worst fear is one powerful scene. Not quite as powerful as when Celestia told off Twilight in a Canterlot wedding, but it still hits pretty hard. Overall, the moral is good, but executed in a very strange way. The Season 3 two-part opener was good, but I felt like it was the weakest opener out of the 3 seasons. If I had to give it a rating right now, I'd give it a 2.5 stars out of 5. It did set the tone for the season, though. Twilight seems a bit more powerful than she did before. And what was that book Luna had at the end of the episode? It leaves me to think that Season 3 might have some deeper stories later on. Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Now this is the kind of episode I've been waiting for. Returning to the classic slice of life with a little bit of silly humor thrown in. It's back to basics with Season 3's standalone episodes. Let's see how well they fare.
Okay.
Too Many Pinkie Pies has to be one of the most enjoyable episodes of Ponies in quite a long time. I don't think I smiled so much in an episode since the last roundup. The story begins when Pinkie Pie realizes that she can't hang out with all of her friends around the same time. So Twilight indirectly gives her the idea that she can go clone herself. It starts out with one duplicate Pinkie, but soon escalates into many of them. The scene before the chaos of the Pinkie Swarm has to be one of my favorite conversations in MLP history. Pinkie Pie talking to herself and trying to comfort herself is just so amusing.
Ooh, tell me all about it. Do they pull the walls of the barn up slow or fast? Maybe slow to medium fast, somewhere in that range? Ooh, did you get ice cream? What kinds did they have? Banana prickle? I didn't make it. I was on my way there, and then Fluttershy, yeah, her, she offered something else fun for me to do, a picnic with cute little animals. How could you say no to that? That's what I'm saying. Then I would have missed the super fun thing with applesauce. Applejack. No, I didn't do anything fun at all. Oh, my poor me. There.
I don't think I need to say that the humor in this episode was top-notch. That speaks for itself. As I said, I was smiling constantly throughout the entire episode. During the latter half of the episode where Pinkie starts saying fun over and over again, causing chaos, is, well, fun. There were a lot of visual gags during the end of the episode as well as throughout, including one with the G3 pony face. Even though it was given away in the hub promo for Season 3. It was still awesome to see them actually do something like that in an episode. The different expressions that each Pinkie makes is great for rewatching and seeing what each Pinkie is doing. I noticed that some of them were actually in animation loops that had been seen in previous episodes. Other than that, the animation is pretty standard, and Pinkie herself always has some great expressions. The moral of the story was not to be too concerned about not having time with all of your friends, and that you may have to choose sometimes. It's a fairly good lesson for those like Pinkie who have a lot of friends that they want to hang out with, but just don't have the time to do it with all of them, especially not all at once. Overall, if I had to give this episode a rating right now, I'd probably give it 5 stars. It's just that enjoyable. Who wrote this episode anyway? Was it the new writer who joined, or... What? Dave Polsky's back? Well. Huh. Well, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Ah, the Cutie Mark Crusaders. Either you love them for how cute they are, or you hate them for how annoying they are. One Bad Apple is the first CMC episode of the season, and these episodes are usually very polarizing, so let me tell you what I think. This episode focuses on the CMC being bullied by Applebloom's cousin named Babseed visiting from Manhattan. Now let's get right into it. Bullying is a hard issue to tackle in children's shows because all situations are different. Depending on the age and location, it might be hard for kids to deal with bullies outright by just telling older folks. Now, I was bullied a little in elementary and middle school, but in high school, not really. From my experience, talking to counselors does work, for both the bully and the victim. That's only from my personal experience though, so I'm not sure about others. Also, as far as the bully becoming the bully, I have seen that happen, but oddly enough, I saw it happen in high school. Someone who I was acquainted with in middle school who was bullied became the bully in high school. New environments can change people. I don't want to tread on this topic too much in the review, but if you still want to discuss it, please feel free to do so in the comments. Even though I may not reply, I read every single one. Overall, I would say the moral presented itself well, and it may not work for everyone. But in my experience, it's a good lesson to tell children to consult their elders for advice on being bullied. As far as the actual bully, Babseed, I think she was a cute character. DB Pony tells me that she has a Boston accent rather than a Manhattan accent, but I wouldn't know, I've never really been up north. I've heard a lot of complaints that she was too much like the other bullies in the show like Gilda or Trixie, or even Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. But honestly, I feel like all of those antagonists are very different and people are just not seeing past the bully side of the character. Babs just wants to be accepted, and she took her chance when she realized that she could be the bully instead of the victim. The only problem I have with the development of that is that we don't really see what Babs and the other two fillies do when they're alone. Like whether Babs feels regret for bullying the CMC, which we don't really see that regret until the end of the episode. Other than that, I think the episode is pretty good overall. Definitely one of the better CMC episodes, but not the best. Though I have to wonder how consistent the writers are trying to be with the Cutie Mark Crusaders and their abilities as kids. Because before, when they couldn't do anything in the showstoppers, now they can make a full-fledged working float with the inner mechanics of a booby trap. One Bad Apple must have a different writer from the showstoppers. Wait, Cindy Morrow? You wrote both of these episodes? Oh well, at least you put in an A-Team reference. I felt like this episode wasn't trying quite as hard in the animation department as the previous episodes in the season. I was spotting a few errors and some duplicate ponies virtually beside each other in the episode. I think the one thing that annoyed me the most was when Babs was saying snitch and the mouth movements didn't sync with the word. Even though later on when Applebloom and Scootaloo think back to that moment, then the mouth movements match. However, with that said, there was one sequence in the episode that I really adored, and that was the song. The animation during that was great, and the way they transitioned everything was brilliant. The song itself has been one of the best I've heard from the show, and probably the best CMC song. It was very pop rock, and I absolutely loved that.
Hiding from a bully, we know it isn't right. But the Cutie Mark Crusaders, we are looking for a fight.
Oh, she'll go home soon and then we'll have some peace again. But for now we're staying out of her way till then.
Everywhere we turn, she's just a step ahead. Babseed, what we gonna do? Got a bully on our tail, gotta hide, we gotta fail. Babseed, if she's after you, gotta run, we gotta flee, gotta hurry, don't you see? Why so mean? Why so crude? Why so angry? Why so rude? Can't you be nice? Can't we be friends? Isn't it sad? Is this how it all
Though I have to say, musicians, please take your time with your covers and remixes. I don't know how many people I saw posting their remix the day the episode aired, or the day after, and the majority I listened to were honestly very subpar. So even though I love a lot of you musicians, please take time with your work. Don't rush it. I know you're excited, but don't rush it. Anyway, the episode I would give an unofficial score of 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said before, it's a good CMC episode, but not the best. I'm personally looking forward to a certain episode coming down the line about one of the CMC. Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. I think when we all watched Boast Busters for the first time, we expected to see Trixie again down the line at some point. Well, that moment has finally arrived. Has it lived up to expectations? Spoiler alert, it does. I'll go ahead and say it right now, I think this was the best episode of Season 3 so far. Everything about it felt so great. I always love it when shows have antagonists from previous seasons come back for an episode. For Trixie, it felt like it was closing a story for her that needed to be finished. I heard a lot of people saying that this episode was full of fan pandering, but that's not exactly the case. If you look into it, the episode was planned to be made quite a long time ago. In fact, back in January of 2011, in the middle of Season 1. Recurring antagonists are a common theme in any show. This is just the first time we've actually had a major one in My Little Pony. And some people are all up in arms thinking that's fan pandering, when really it just means the series is starting to mature. Not mature as in getting more adult, but as in getting more established. Speaking of maturing, the theme of this episode was pretty dark compared to what was seen in Boast Busters. The opening with Trixie in the shop was a very great way to set the mood of the episode, and it really got me pumped to see what she was up to. And how the town was overhung with dark clouds was very foreboding. It really made it feel like Trixie was becoming evil. And the way she banished Twilight after she won the magic duel was also very villainous.
Trixie is the highest level unicorn! And now it's time for you to leave Ponyville forever!
That's enough, Trixie!
You proved your point, but you can't possibly expect Twilight to leave Ponyville!
You fools! She's already gone!
I'm really glad Trixie came back because it made for other great callbacks, including the rock farm, the mustache magic, and you can call it a stretch, but it seems like the fact that they had Twilight go to Zecora was a callback to the original intention of the series to have her be a mentor for the ponies rather than Celestia. I also love how they show Zecora as a sort of Yoda figure and reinforce that by referencing the scene from The Empire Strikes Back. This episode also made me appreciate Zecora a bit more. I love how confident she was in knowing that she could defeat Trixie with her magic if she wanted to. She just sounded so sassy.
If you train with me, so good you'll be, I'll show you the way to make sure she won't stay.
You'll train me in magic? But she was doing age spells, weather spells, you name it.
When it comes to magic, it would be tragic if some pony licked me, especially Trixie.
You really think I can beat her?
Mm-hmm.
The humor of the episode was pretty good, though not as hilarious as Too Many Pinkie Pies. This episode was more exciting than funny. Even then, it had one of the best fourth wall jokes of the entire series with Trixie deleting Pinkie's mouth object. I know a lot of Flash animators that will appreciate that joke. Also, I noticed that compared to Boast Busters, the animation has really improved a lot in the past 2 seasons. When I watched the episodes back to back, I could definitely tell that they were paying closer attention to detail in Magic Duel. Overall, I don't really have anything bad to say about this episode. It was just a lot of fun to see Trixie return and duel with Twilight. There really wasn't much of a moral, though. I guess you could say it's something about getting power-hungry or forgiveness, or you could say it's about Twilight appreciating her friends more by having them help show up Trixie, but really there wasn't a moral that was explained at all. I liked that, though, because it gives the writers more freedom to make episodes like this, which are just great fun. And if you can take a moral away from the episode despite one not being explained, then that's great. The question remains, though. Will we see Trixie again sometime in the future? That's hard to say. Her story was resolved, but now she's an ally and not a foe. So we might see her again, but probably much later down the line. She had a reason for returning this time because it was finishing her redemption arc. If there is a next time, we may see her helping Twilight and her friends rather than going against them. Anyway, I give this episode an unofficial score of 5 out of 5. It was just too much fun to watch not to give it that. Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Also, iTunes, please get your shit together. Yet another episode we've been waiting for has aired, this time starring Scootaloo. Again, did this live up to expectation? Let's find out. Sleepless in Ponyville is Scootaloo's very first episode focused on her. Not only is it focused on her, but it's exploring the relationship with Rainbow Dash and how she looks up to her. I don't know why, but I was afraid Scootaloo's first episode wouldn't explore that, even though they didn't really have a reason not to at this point. I suppose the vagueness of the early synopsis had me a bit worried. Then again, I suppose it was expected. What I didn't expect is that this episode was written by a completely new writer to the series, Corey Powell. Well, Corey, let's see how well you did. I think having the CMC and their sisters/idols go on a camping trip with them was a great way to explore Scootaloo's aberration for Dash. They were all going to be together for a few days, so it was the perfect excuse to do so. I also really love camping trip episodes of cartoons. It probably has to deal with the fact that I've been camping a lot, and I love seeing characters interact when they have to spend more than a couple of days with each other, and they're forced to collaborate if they want to survive. The dream sequences that Scootaloo had in the episode were interesting, and it definitely felt like a different atmosphere from the real world they were in. I felt like it harkened back to the Giggle at the Ghosty sequence from the second episode. The trees looked similar and the overall color scheme was similar. Actually, crazy theory time. What if, since we now know that Luna can enter dreams, and when she was Nightmare Moon, she was able to make the trees look like that, so maybe Luna has the ability to carry over the dream world as hallucinations in the real world. Yeah, think about that. Anyway, I love Luna's role in this episode, and I'm very glad that they gave her something to do during the night besides just raising the moon. We know Celestia does all the important paperwork and whatnot, but Luna helps people in their dreams? That's awesome. I love the dialogue between her and Scootaloo. It felt so much more real than the rest of the episode, despite it being in a dream. Although at the end when she shouts, "Face your fears," it gets a bit less real.
Face your fears!
But the most emotional part of this episode has to be near the end when Scootaloo finally tells Rainbow Dash how she really feels. I gotta give props to Maddie Peters for her voice acting in this. You can definitely tell in her voice that Scootaloo feels very frustrated by how scared she was and just wanted to impress Dash. And the action that follows when Dash puts her wing around Scootaloo has to be one of the most adorable moments in the entire show. I think we were all waiting for that throughout the entire episode. What a reward to get. It's just so cute. Ah! The humor in this episode was alright. The different gags throughout the episode were great. Dash's snoring, Sweetie Belle being Rarity's lackey, and all of Scootaloo's actions and dialogues were great. I probably laughed more than I should at her trying to get the sticks from the woods. Though I think this episode was more of an emotional one than a funny one. The animation was really great. There were a lot of different expressions that made me smile, and there were a lot of great shots showing the environment. Overall, I'd probably give this episode a 4.5 out of 5. There's not really that much I can find wrong with it. Maybe it's really a 5 out of 5, and I just don't want to give the episode the same rating as last week. Nah, that can't be it. Well, those are my thoughts. Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. It seems that Season 3 is giving us a lot of episodes that we've been expecting to see for quite a while, and an episode about Dash trying out for the Wonderbolts have been on fans' minds. And, wait, Meriwether Williams? You mean the writer who wrote this Rainbow Dash episode? Son of a... Okay, so despite the fact that the first episode of Meriwether's was probably the worst episode of the entire show, and her other episodes are just alright, I actually really enjoyed Wonderbolts Academy. The story was something we wanted to see, it provided a great moral, and it had us feel for Dash. The only thing this episode was really lacking in was the humor, but that's okay because the characters and story made up for that. The moral was great and it developed Dash's character more than ever. After seeing how reckless Lightning Dust was, it was like Dash realized how much she could be endangering other ponies if she was being too self-centered. It's almost as if she learned her lesson from Mare. The little subplot with Pinkie worrying about Rainbow Dash was really amusing, too. It seems like Pinkie has grown really close to Dash ever since Griffon the Brush Off. Also, the animation in this episode has been some of the best I've seen this season. I mean, we've already seen some impressive stuff so far, but I feel like this episode had the most new stuff. There were a lot of expressions and motions the characters did here that I haven't seen anywhere else in the show. I love it when animators test what they can do with the character models. Oh yeah, and I love that they put in some returning characters from Hurricane Fluttershy in this episode. If there's something I would nitpick about, it would probably be Spitfire. I know a lot of people have already complained that she hasn't had a consistent voice, but it seems like this is going to be the voice that will stick with her throughout the rest of the series. I wasn't really irked by the voice though, mainly by the fact that she had such a different personality from the previous times we saw her. Though later it was explained to me that she had to act tough because being a Wonderbolt requires them to take in the best. And being based off the Blue Angels, a team of military pilots, it makes sense that Spitfire would have a drill sergeant-like attitude during training. The only other thing I would mark off points for would be the ending of this episode. It was just left kind of vague. Did Rainbow Dash get into the Wonderbolts? Was that implied? I mean, I guess she's continuing her training, but what about her friends? Does she need to move or what? Hopefully we'll find out about that in the upcoming episodes. So yeah, Merryweather, not bad. This is your best episode by far. I give it a 4 out of 5. Until next time, I'm Paleo, and thank you for watching. Last season, Applejack was sort of overshadowed by other characters in her episodes. But now she's getting an episode all to herself in Season 3 with, oh hey look, it's her family.
Okay.
I have a feeling that the writers have the hardest time writing for Applejack. It seems that every episode focused on her since Season 2 has only been indirectly focused on her and hasn't really been expanding her character that much. At all. The weird thing is that this episode makes her character a bit less consistent. We all know that Applejack is a hard worker and is very family-oriented, but to have her fail at putting together a family reunion is, well, kind of inconsistent. I mean, look back at the very first episode. It looked like she was Granny Smith's second hand, if not the one handling everything. So, what gives? I mean, I know this is a show originally intended for children, and I know you're probably tired of hearing that, but if the writers do want to have some sort of continuity with the characters, then you would think they would pay attention to stuff like this to keep each personality distinct. Like my friend Brony Curious said in his review, why have AJ struggle with the family reunion? The character who is the most family-oriented of the entire show. It seems like they added conflict just for the sake of having conflict. If you ask me, I think they could have thought of some better plot involving the reunion. I really would have loved it if they delved into why AJ's parents are gone, but I guess that would have been a bit too deep for the show. At least they gave us a subtle nod to that speculation. Other than the questionable plotline, I felt like this episode was just okay. It wasn't bad, but it was still enjoyable. It was nice to see all of the Apple family get together and talk with each other, and the episode introduced us to a few characters we hadn't seen before. I feel like the episode would have been better if we explored more of the relationships between the different Apple family members, rather than trying to add conflict with Applejack trying to make the reunion the best there is.
Trust me, little sis. This reunion I'm putting together is gonna be worth the wait.
Then there's the sequence with the song, which isn't bad. I thought it was catchy, but it did feel kind of weird that the solution to their problem was manual labor. I imagine that's why Babs wasn't singing. Kinda hard to get excited about that. Overall, I'd give the episode a 3 out of 5. Like I said, it's not bad. I just wish they could have taken this episode in a different direction. Oh, and sorry for the delay on this review. I'll make it up to you by posting the next one early. See you in the next video. Oh hey, what's this? Another episode partially focused on Applejack? Will it make up for Apple Family Reunion? Or will Applejack get overshadowed again? Will Spike get overshadowed in his own episode? Well, stop asking questions and let's get to the review.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now, this is probably going to be in my top favorites for Season 3. Why? Well, this is probably one of the funnier episodes of Season 3 so far, and I had a blast watching it. I actually caught myself laughing at a few parts, which I rarely do. I usually just smile or giggle, but I actually laughed. It also gave a decent amount of screen time to all the main characters, which has become pretty rare outside of two-parters. I think the main reason I laughed a lot during this episode is because it had a lot of character-specific humor. Since we're so far into the show now, we know each character pretty well, and when jokes are made about their personalities, we get a pretty good chuckle out of it. Just take a look.
Applejack, is it okay if I get going? I don't want to be late for my Crusaders meeting. We're getting fitted for water skis.
You definitely don't want to be late for that.
Water skiing, Cutie Pox, here I come.
What are you having them do? Wash your laundry? Clean your room? Help you with your unfinished novel? Mine's about this awesome Pegasus who's the best flyer ever and becomes the captain of the Wonderbolts.
However did you come up with that ingeniously woven, intricate plot line? Just came to me.
Twilight, are you there? Twilight! Ah! Sorry.
See what I mean? Other than the humor, another thing that really surprised me about this episode was the new look of the Timberwolves. It looks like DHX is getting some ideas to use 3D animation in the show, and I have a feeling this may not be the first time we see it. Oh, and back to humor, I love how when the giant Timberwolf was choking, he was like, hold up, wait a minute. It's also little bits of humor like that I love. Enough about the humor though. I feel like this episode explored Applejack's character more than Apple Family Reunion did. We see how Applejack is willing to help someone because they are her friend, and that they don't have to give her something in return. Applejack was trying to teach Spike that lesson, but without disappointing him since he wanted to help her. Though I do find it kind of weird that Spike isn't that helpful to AJ, yet he's always cleaning Twilight's library without making a mess. Despite that though, I love this episode. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. And I'd probably call it one of the better Applejack episodes in the show. How can this episode be a better Applejack episode than last week's? It's very bizarre. Who wrote this episode? Hey guys, that was my last episode review of 2012. Apparently the next episode won't be out until the 19th, so there won't be a new review for a while. But in the meantime, I'm making a series of top 7 lists of my picks for 2012. That includes different videos and songs, so go check them out. Thanks for your viewership and your support. It means a lot. Again, thank you. Alright, time to finish what I started. I know I'm going kind of backwards here in my last few reviews for Season 3, but it'll be explained later in my Keep Calm and Flutter On review, since I'll be doing that last. So, Magical Mystery Cure is one very polarizing episode, but not because of Alicorn Twilight. That's just people whining. No, it's because this episode was a musical. You know, with all the people wanting more songs in Season 3, I thought that people would be happy that the finale would be a musical. But nope, I guess half the fandom just hates musicals. Ironically enough, I found that some musicians that I follow on Tumblr dislike the episode for this reason. Ever since I went on hiatus, people have constantly been asking me what I thought of the finale. I'm here to settle it once and for all in this video. So what did I think about the Season 3 finale? I absolutely loved it. Part of me wanted to say, yeah, it was alright, to not perpetuate the fact that this is a love it or hate it episode. But I just can't help it. This episode was great! I love the songs, I love the callbacks to previous episodes, I love the way they handled Alicorn Twilight, this episode was great. It's definitely one of my favorites of the entire series. Now let's go over why with the reasons I just stated. First of all, the songs. Holy crap, the songs. I thought I was just gonna like 1 or 2 of these. But man, having Daniel Ingram and Stephen Andrews compose all of the music for this episode was a smart decision. Beginning with Morning in Ponyville and having it end with Life in Equestria was just brilliant, tying the episode together. What my cutie mark is telling me was a great way to move along the plot of the episode. I've Got to Find a Way was really unique in being the first song of its kind in the series, and really made the viewer feel for Twilight and her situation. A True True Friend was excellent in showing the solution to the problem and giving all of the characters their own part in the song that stood out. Behold Princess Twilight was... yeah, well, I didn't really care for that one as much, because of the weird holiness feel to it. Though it's way better than the Heart Carol from Hearth's Warming Eve. And Celestia's Ballad. Oh, Celestia's Ballad just... I wasn't expecting Celestia to sing in this episode. And I was excited to see her do so, because I've been secretly wanting a song from her. It's just so good. Oh, it's so good. Second reason I love this episode, the way they handled Twilight becoming an alicorn was genius. She has to complete a spell that's in Star Swirl's journal? Brilliant! I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff that was said in Brony Curious's review, so go check out his video because a lot of what he said is exactly how I feel about the situation. I know that continuity seems to be a big deal to a lot of people, and to me it is a bit, but the fact of the matter is, this show is first and foremost a cartoon meant for entertainment for 22 minutes and that's it. There doesn't need to be any sort of continuity. It just needs to entertain kids for a bit. But the fact that we are getting quite a few nods to this sort of stuff is great. Speaking of which, the callbacks to the previous episodes. With the little jingle of Art of the Dress, a reference to the Smile song, Spike reciting different possible solutions to the problem, a lot of callbacks in the background, and quite literal callbacks to everything that's happened at this point during Celestia's Ballad. This really felt like a finale for the entire show, which makes sense since it's part of the whole 65-episode syndication thing. But man, if the show were to stop right now, I wouldn't be upset. I know half the fandom would, but not me. I know a lot of people hated the whole musical thing, but honestly, I didn't mind it at all. In fact, I stated in my very first video about ponies that I usually hate musicals and don't really enjoy them. I didn't even like them in Disney films. Yet the songs in Friendship is Magic has changed that for me. Now I look forward to when there's a song in the show or any well-produced animation. Anyway, Magical Mystery Cure is one of my favorite episodes and probably my favorite episode of Season 3. I'll explain a bit more about what I think regarding the fact that Twilight is an alicorn in an upcoming video. I've got a theory that will blow your mind. Though it won't be quite as analytical as someone like Digibrony. Pfft, no way I would go that in depth. Could you imagine? Hey, look at me, I'm Digibrony. I have static images in my videos with commentary so I can have a partnership while avoiding Hasbro's copyright and get all the hits with custom thumbnails of appealing artwork from someone else. Therefore, it is my job to obsess over MLP. Was that too harsh? What do you mean, jealousy? It's not like he's caught up to me in subs or Jesus Christ, he's already doubled my amount. At least I'm still way ahead of him in videos views, right? Wow, he's catching up fast. That's it. I'm done. I quit. I quit. That's it. No more reviews for me. I need to go rethink my life for a moment. At least I'm more attractive.